I unexpectedly transmigrated into a novel I had read, but fate didn't grant me the body of a protagonist with a distinguished background. Instead, I became the offspring of a disgraced official in the imperial court. Because of my alleged treason, my Hua Rongzhu family was brutally murdered, while my sister and I managed to escape. From then on, we lived a life of wandering and begging. But our good fortune didn't last long, and we were captured by the palace guards. Fortunately, because we were illegitimate children, and thanks to the great mercy of the Heavenly Maiden, my sister and I were eventually spared the death penalty. However, as punishment, we were sentenced to serve in the palace as apprentices and maids for life. A few years later, just as my sister finished fetching water and was about to secretly rest, she was spotted by the passing palace attendant. Upon seeing this, the older sister was immediately shocked and quickly stood up to bow and pay her respects to Lord Zhang Lai. She was truly ashamed, as carrying water was too tiring, and before she could finish speaking, Zhang Lai suddenly interrupted. "Isn't it too heavy for a girl to carry all this?" After saying that, he insisted on carrying the bucket back for her. At this moment, Zhang Lai asked his sister what her name was, and his sister replied very politely, "I am a lowly palace maid from Tianlong village, and my name is Zhu Lan." This left Zhang Lai momentarily dazed. "Was it an orchid blooming in winter? Your name is beautiful." Just as he finished speaking, a loud bang came from behind. Looking over, they saw me facing off against a wild boar. I rolled up my sleeves, my face beaming with excitement. It had been a long time since I'd met my match. If you want to survive, fight to the death. The next second, the wild boar charged at me like a madman. I first blocked with both hands, then easily finished him off with a backhand punch. The two men who witnessed the whole thing were completely dumbfounded, while I was still fretting about what to do with the body. But the moment I turned around, the scene suddenly became awkward. Then I hurriedly bowed and greeted Lord Zhang Lai. I was truly sorry for the misunderstanding. Lord Bai Xian had sent me to capture the wild boar that had wandered into the palace, which was why I ended up in this disheveled state. "If you have no other instructions, I'll go deal with this wild boar." Zhang Lai nodded in agreement, but just as I was about to leave, I put on a sly expression. "Don't worry, I would never tell anyone about your secret meeting." Upon hearing this, the two broke out in a cold sweat and waved their hands repeatedly, indicating that it wasn't what you thought. However, I had already dragged the wild boar far away. After parting ways with the two, I couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Zhang Lai, the palace attendant, had a chance encounter with the female protagonist, Zhu Lan. Although Zhang Lai fell in love with Zhu Lan at first sight, Zhu Lan, with her strong and passionate personality, captured the hearts of countless handsome men, and ultimately not only married the male protagonist, the crown prince, but also she even became the holy maiden of the heavenly capital, commanding all officials. This is the general content of the romantic fantasy novel, The Kingdom of Heavenly Dragons, but the story's development has absolutely nothing to do with me, the heroine's younger brother. I belong to the White Immortal Palace within the Imperial Palace, a gathering place for Taoist priests who specialize in resolving matters of magic within the palace. The people in the palace respectfully call those Taoist priests the White Immortals, and I am a military officer who assists the White Immortals. Then, just as I was happily humming a little tune while chopping wild boar meat, a figure suddenly appeared behind me. Sensing something, I immediately went on alert, but the next second, my sister appeared in front of me and then leaned forward to ask about my injuries. I gestured to her not to worry, but if a palace maid from the inner palace came to Bai Xian Palace and was discovered before I could finish speaking, my sister snatched the kitchen knife and said sternly, "My brother is injured. Shouldn't you, as his sister, come and see him?" After saying that, he grabbed my arm and started spitting out the back ointment, which made me sigh softly. He's right, I'm my sister's only family now. But why is he still so naive after experiencing so much family turmoil since childhood? After putting on the back ointment, the older sister immediately changed her demeanor, insisting that he should always talk to her about anything in the future. Then, she suddenly changed the subject. "Little brother, do you have someone you like right now?" Upon learning there was no such person, his face instantly fell in disappointment. "My dear brother, you're incredibly mature, but this topic piqued my interest. What was that martial arts master I met during the day like?" My sister blushed and hurriedly explained, "Zhang Lai and I really have nothing to do with each other." I ignored her and asked if she wanted a bowl of wild boar soup, but my sister said she had to go back quickly. Before leaving, he specifically instructed Lord Zhang to see you and to ask you to visit him at the palace at dawn the next day. Hearing this, I was filled with curiosity. What did he want with me? My sister guessed. Hearing this, I was filled with curiosity. What did he want to see me about? My sister guessed that he must have been surprised to see me defeat the wild boar. After taking my sister away, I was still puzzled. Why was it the samurai captain who wanted to see me? I tried my best not to attract attention. I just wanted to work and play simply, and I'd be content with a hot bowl of soup and rice. The next day, after I arrived at the Red Palace, Zhang asked me about how I had killed the wild boar with my bare hands the day before. Your strength seems very high, unlike what you could achieve through regular training. Can you tell me how you got it? Upon hearing this, I told you the truth. When I was 6 years old, I almost died from a heat stroke, and my strength increased after that. Divine heat is a process of receiving only the breath of the gods. Although those who suffer from divine heat must endure pain that they cannot bear, once they overcome it, they will gain power that is unimaginable to ordinary people. It is also the most painful trial among the three calamities. Therefore, the one who defeats the divine heat is the one chosen by God. Upon hearing this, Zhang Lai said it was a pity to keep this power in the White Fairy Palace. You should stand on a bigger stage to showcase your talents. Upon hearing this, my heart skipped a beat and I prayed that he wouldn't mention anything else. But fate had other plans. Zhang Lai still extended an invitation to me, saying, "Why don't you come to my Crimson Palace? I've prepared a spot for you here." This sent a chill down my spine, and my mind raced, trying to come up with a solution. I am grateful for Lord Zhang Lai's invaluable suggestion, but I am of the Chen Hua Rong bloodline, and it is only thanks to the compassion of the heavenly capital saintess that I was able to remain in the palace. How could I dare now? Before I could finish speaking, Zhang Lai suddenly interrupted. I value strength more than divine warriors. Just tell me your unavoidable difficulties. Hearing this, I had no choice but to confess that my motto is to work as much as possible and earn as much money as possible. After saying this, the atmosphere became awkward. Then Zhang Lai burst into laughter. I understand. Even in the palace, one must consider rewards. In that case, you are indeed not suitable for the Crimson Palace. But can you bear to see him? Upon hearing this, I handed my sword directly to Zhang Lai. When he drew it and took a look, I found that the sword was indeed in poor condition. The sword's appearance indicated that it was at the level of a 5-person swordsman. You need to manage it properly. I nodded in response and accepted the sword he returned. He then coughed lightly, and I immediately understood what he meant by the palace maid I'd seen at that time yesterday. Please rest assured, Lord Zhang, I will keep this a secret. As night fell, Zhang Lai gazed out the window, lost in thought. Although it had been a very short time, the boy's array formation was far beyond that of an ordinary martial artist. It was a characteristic honed over a long period of time. Not only that, he deliberately acted like a novice, concealing his true strength, and there was that sharp look in his eyes at the time. Lord Bai Xian, what exactly are you hiding in your palace? Meanwhile, inside Bai Xian Palace, Lord Bai Xian and I were having a meal. Just then a voice came from behind. It was Yan Li, a maid from Bai Xian Palace. Tae-pyung, I heard you caught a wild boar. I brought some fermented soybean paste. Let's make some raw meat salad. Watching the two of them eat with relish, Yan Li was completely exasperated. How could they turn all the ingredients into soup and rice? Just then, Li Jian, the white immortal of Tiandu Palace, suddenly interrupted. Tae-pyung, go and check out the Qinglong Palace's bedroom formation. If you're too shy to go alone, bring Yan Li along. Yan Li looked puzzled. Shouldn't the problem with the formation be handled by Lord Bai Xian? Judging from Consort Shu's illness, Sister Li Jian thinks Tae-pyung should be more helpful than me. You'll find out the details when you get to the Azure Dragon Palace. Meanwhile, inside the Azure Dragon Palace, several maids watched the scene unfold with terrified expressions. Consort Shu, looking suspicious, begged the maids to kill her. The next day, on the way to the Azure Dragon Palace, Yan Li asked curiously if Consort Shu's illness was related to the formation. But what intrigued me even more was that if Consort Shu's dragon fetus couldn't be saved because of the formation, shouldn't Lord Bai Xian personally take action? But why must I, a swordsman, be sent? After quickly examining the formation, I determined that Consort Shu's illness was unrelated to it. At this point, a maid told me that Consort Shu appeared to be very ill and that she had attacks every night. Hearing this piqued my curiosity, so I decided to go to the palace to check on Consort Shu's condition. The head maid, having received the news, was already standing at the door. The head maid, having heard the news, was already waiting outside the door. After we greeted each other, she immediately led me towards the palace. What struck me as odd was that the area around Consort Shu's palace was extremely deserted. Shouldn't the maids be busier than ever during her illness? Upon arriving at the palace gate, the head maid bowed and said, "The consort Shu is currently lying on the bed inside." Just as Yan Li was about to push the door open, a trainee maid suddenly blocked the doorway, saying, "You cannot go in. Although this is unreasonable, please listen to me. You absolutely cannot go in directly." But before I could explain the reason, he was dragged away by several other maids. Seeing this, I realized it wasn't a simple matter. "Xuanji," I suggested to Yan Li, "let's just go back." But Yan Li had already opened the door sometime earlier. Going back like this would get us a severe scolding from Lord Bai Xian. So I had no choice but to bite the bullet and follow him inside. But as soon as we entered, we were shocked by the pungent smell and consort Shu's appearance. How could someone be reduced to this state with so many maids in the Azure Dragon Palace? Thinking of this, my body began to disobey my commands. I felt pain and weakness all over my body. This was consort Shu repeatedly telling me to kill her. I immediately realized that this was a mind-controlling spell, so I quickly bit my lip to regain my senses. Curious, I went forward to see what had happened to consort Shu, but seeing the mark on her neck, I immediately understood. No wonder Lord Bai Xian specifically asked me to come. It was divine heat. Just then Yan Li, still not fully awake, suddenly drew my sword. Before he could strike, I quickly knocked the sword away and carried him out of the room. Yan Li, now back to his senses, was still shaken. The dream had been terrifying. Curious, I asked him what kind of nightmare it was, and he replied with a terrified look that it was something terrible. The worst part was that you put it in his soup again. I was speechless for a moment, then turned my gaze to the head maid. "Why didn't you remind me to take the knife before I went in? Did you intend to use me to kill consort Shu?" Upon hearing this, the head maid immediately kowtowed and explained, "I have committed a capital offense. I thought it was for consort Shu's own good. Since consort Shu ascended to this position, not a day has passed that I haven't thought of her. But after learning it was a divine fever, we've been doing everything in our power to save her. However, things haven't gone as planned. Consort Shu's illness is worsening. At first, she only wanted to die, but now she's even resorting to bewitching magic. So continuing would be futile." Upon hearing this, Yan Li blushed instantly. "Then why don't you just do it yourself? Why drag us into this?" The head maid continued to explain. "I heard that you two are people that Lord Bai Xian cherishes. If Lord Bai Xian can plead for you, I won't have to be buried with you." Upon hearing this, Yan Li immediately turned and suggested leaving the place, and truthfully reporting the situation to Bai Xian Palace. Otherwise, staying any longer might lead to disaster. However, after pondering for a few seconds, I loudly announced that this was my responsibility. Upon hearing this, Yan Li's face turned ashen. "Tae-pyung, what nonsense are you spouting?" I then said, "I know you are thinking of consort Shu and have been concealing the truth about the divine fever from her. Although consort Shu entered the palace as the crown prince's consort, once high-ranking officials learned that she had contracted divine fever, they would certainly find someone else to replace her. And if she contracted divine fever and was then banished from the palace, she would only face death. I believe you must have anticipated this, which is why you didn't tell me the truth." Hearing this, the head maid was filled with guilt. "But just now I was still trying to turn you into a murderer, so I put on a troubled expression. Since that's the case, you'll have to pay the price. So I'll punish you all by making you help consort Shu." At the same time, consort Shu had already gotten out of bed and was struggling to crawl towards the long sword that had fallen to the ground. But as he passed by and saw his disheveled appearance, he couldn't help but feel dazed. "I was clearly the most beautiful flower in the Azure Dragon Palace, but now I've turned into this ghastly state." Tears streaming down his face, he reached for the sword, but just then a beam of light struck his face. A strange man walked in, and I was shocked. I quickly snatched the sword away. The sword was aimed at his face, and then a strange man walked in. I was shocked and immediately grabbed the sword. But the next second, consort Shu cast a spell to confuse me. I quickly closed my eyes and focused my mind. Then I took out a dagger and stabbed it into my thigh. After that, I picked up consort Shu and did squats, concentrating on maintaining my flexibility. I am a true man. After quickly placing consort Shu on the bed, I firmly reassured her not to worry because I knew how much pain she was in. As I spoke, I unwrapped the cloth strip from my arm. I had suffered from divine fever before. These were the marks that appear on people who had it. So even if there was only a 1% chance. To survive, we must never stop trying. Consort Shu, I believe you can do it. Although these words sounded meaningless, for some reason, a thought of survival arose in consort Shu's heart at that moment. But to take care of someone suffering from divine heat, one must listen to the experience of those who have been there before. There happens to be such a person in the harem, and that is my sister, Zhu Lan. And what I said to Consort Shu before was exactly what my sister encouraged me with when I was a child. After calming Consort Shu down, my sister asked me if Consort Shu had caught a fever. I immediately confirmed it, which made my sister somewhat worried. Consort Shu could lose her mind at any moment and use her bewitching magic. You must have had a tough time dealing with this during the day, right? As I said this, my sister suddenly remembered something, and the next second she grabbed my arm and started to examine it. Looking at the scratches of varying depths, my sister complained with heartache. I calmly gestured to my sister not to worry, saying that we could just get some ointment from Master Bai Xian and apply it. Sister, let's talk after this is all over. Afterwards, with my careful care, Consort Shu's pain lessened considerably. She asked me, puzzled, why I had gone to such lengths to help her, and I replied that it would be the act of a petty person to stand by and watch someone die, and that I was a true man. This caused a blush to rise on Consort Shu's face. He was truly a special man. As night fell, I emerged from the brothel palace covered in blood. The soldiers on duty were immediately alarmed. What had happened inside? I made up an excuse that I had accidentally fallen because it was dark, because for Consort Shu's safety, the news of her fever must be kept secret. Now that I have finally done what I needed to do, it is time to report to Lord Bai Xian. Thinking of this, my body suddenly went limp, and I collapsed onto a large rock, exhausted. Just then, my sister, Ryu, arrived, hands on her hips, and came up to me. "Tae-pyung," she said, "didn't you promise me you'd take good care of yourself?" Although seeing Consort Shu's feverish state was impossible to ignore, all you had to do was take her medicine and observe her outside. Why go through all this trouble? I adjusted the gauze on my arm, responding that the stronger her desire to die, the more reasons she should be given to live. Sister, do you remember when I was so feverish? Every night, my sister would sit beside me and tell me what had happened that day, and she would also say many encouraging words to me. Although it was just her duty, I have always kept it in my heart. For those who are about to die, those things could very well be the hope of survival. The next morning, bright sunlight streamed into Consort Shu's palace, and birds chirped incessantly by the window. At this moment, Consort Shu slowly opened her eyes, but as soon as she tried to get up, she stumbled due to her long period of bed rest. After adjusting for a while, she slowly pushed open the door. The maids who saw this were full of surprise, and the head maid rushed to Consort Shu's side immediately. Consort Shu stammered as she spoke. "I'm hungry, I want some soup and rice." This brought tears to the head maid's eyes, and she immediately embraced Consort Shu, sobbing. "Your Highness, whatever you want to eat, I will prepare it for you." At the same time, the head maid of Shayu Palace immediately reported the news of Consort Shu's recovery. Consort Ren and Yan, with expressions of admiration, said this was a good thing to see their beloved consort, and instructed their servants to send some gifts. Then the head maid told the noble consort that the selection of consort due had ended. Ren and Yan guessed that she must be a virtuous person, as her name suggests. At this moment, the head maid suddenly became serious and reported to the noble consort that 5 people had helped Consort Shu. If it weren't for those 5 people, Consort Shu might have died long ago. I also heard she was from the Hua Rongsu family. Upon hearing this, a murderous glint flashed in Yan's eyes. The Hua Rongsu family was actually the family that plotted to kill her uncle and rebel. The Hua Rongzu family was actually the family that plotted to kill their uncle and rebel. Meanwhile, in the kitchen of the Bai Xian Palace, Yan Li was in anguish as to why she had to make soup and rice again. And what's more, it was a bland, watery salt soup and rice. After saying that, she ran out looking aggrieved. I quickly explained that this was Tianhua salt, refined over 7 years in the Tianlang district of the East China Sea. Wen Xian immediately sat down obediently at the dining table. Just then, a shout came from outside the door, and soon the head maid of Qinglong Palace came in with generous gifts and expressed her sincere gratitude to Yan Li and me. Seeing this, the supervisor hurriedly stepped forward to stop them. How could the head maid of the Azure Dragon Palace bow to the maids and the 10 warriors? The high-ranking officials of the palace would surely say we didn't know the rules. Yan Li, standing behind him, murmured, "We almost died back then, so we're just offering this as an apology." But when he heard that it was some expensive ingredients, his expression immediately changed, and he stepped forward to take the head maid's hand. "Elder maid, you are so kind and generous. To repay your kindness, I will personally cook some pan-fried pork slices tonight." At this moment, the head maid mentioned that in addition to these ingredients, Consort Shu had also brought a jeweled wooden box and a letter of thanks. As evening fell after my sister found me, she immediately became very interested in the wooden box that Consort Shu had sent. But when we opened it, we were both dumbfounded. Why would she send such an exquisite hairpin to a man? But what intrigued us even more than the pink letter beneath the hairpin was the contents of the letter. Chuanji looked at its contents, and my sister and I were completely dumbfounded. This thank you note looked more like a love letter expressing affection. After I calmed down, my sister patted my shoulder and reminded me, "Taping, you mustn't have any improper thoughts about the crown princess, or you'll lose your head." After saying that, she threw the letter directly onto the stove. At the same time, Consort Shu was looking out the window alone, but the man's figure inexplicably appeared in the moonlight, which made her blush with embarrassment. "If I go to Baxian Palace, will I be able to see you again?" After Consort Shu sent me gifts of gratitude for several days in a row, Yan Li guessed that Consort Shu might have feelings for me. What puzzled her was that, although you looked respectable, your behavior was like that of a man in his 40s or 50s. "What exactly does Consort Shu see in you?" Sister Wensai retorted. "Princess Tae-pyung isn't always like an old man. Although she's mostly like that, girls of this age are very easy to fall in love with and also very easy to forget. But now it's been 2 months of gift-giving." Upon hearing this, I immediately crushed the potato in my hand and proposed with great momentum. "We have to do something now. I should act like a man and tell Consort Shu that you cannot harbor feelings for a mere samurai." However, Yan Li directly poured water on the situation. "Your approach will only worsen the situation, because young girls in the bud love forbidden love the most and will see themselves as the lowly heroine. Therefore, girls who are deeply involved in such relationships are very fragile." The older sister agreed with Yan Li's assessment. She was right. Being detached from daily life and having her beauty known would drive her to madness. Therefore, directly creating distance wasn't a good approach. Yan Li continued, "The best outcome would be for Consort Shu to give up on you on her own initiative. But you don't need to worry. I've already spoken to the head maid, asking her to speak ill of you to Consort Shu. After all, she's Consort Shu's confidant, so her words will definitely be effective." Unexpectedly, a few days later, the head maid came to apologize, saying she was very sorry that Consort Shu was very angry after hearing me speak ill of Su Yuren. In the end, I had no choice but to tell the consort that I had lied. "Although Su Yuren has been a great help to us, and I will try my best to cooperate, I hope you can understand that I cannot disobey Consort Shu's wishes." Seeing that the plan had failed, I sighed helplessly. "Thank you for your hard work. It seems that this matter can only be reconsidered later." To express her apology, the head maid spoke again. "His Highness the Crown Prince's birthday is coming soon. If you need any help, please don't hesitate to ask." At this, I suddenly had a flash of inspiration and then burst into laughter. I finally came up with a plan. Meanwhile, at the training ground, Zhang Lai respectfully admitted defeat, but the imperial concubine and Yan immediately exposed his deliberate foul play. Zhang Lai nodded. "I was afraid of hurting Her Majesty." Zhang Lai nodded. "I was afraid of hurting Her Highness, so I was cautious when wielding the sword." The strength displayed by the third consort far exceeded his expectations. Not only was her swordsmanship skillful, but every move was also very tricky. I'm afraid even ordinary palace warriors wouldn't be able to withstand more than a few moves. At this moment, Ren Yan sheathed his sword, indicating that His Majesty Yunxin greatly admired him and praised his exceptional martial arts skills. Now it seems his reputation is truly well-deserved. It is precisely because of so many talented generals like you that the Tiandu Kingdom is able to command the world. He then explained the purpose of this sparring session. "I don't want you to instruct me in martial arts, but rather I want to find a decent martial artist so that I can show off my skills on His Highness's birthday. Does Lord Zhang Lai have a suitable candidate?" After a moment's thought, Zhang Lai replied that he did indeed have an ideal candidate. However, upon hearing the name, Ren Yan's face immediately darkened. "You mean Zhu Tae-pyung from the Hua Rong Zhu family?" Upon seeing this, Zhang Lai realized he had misspoke. However, Ren Yan not only didn't blame him, but instead revealed a meaningful smile. Meanwhile, I went over my plan again. Since the eldest daughter cannot disobey her superior, we'll find a noblewoman of similar status to Consort Shu. That's right, it's Consort Ren Yan, who lives in the Vermilion Bird Palace. After all, in the novel, she was the one who hated the Hua Rong Zhu family the most. All she had to do was create some chaos on the Crown Prince's birthday, and then have Sister Zhu Lan save the Crown Prince. At that time, the imperial concubine would surely be furious. If I do something foolish again, the imperial concubine's opinion of me will plummet. eventually reaching the ears of the consort Shu. This plan is, I must say, absolutely perfect. Just then, Yan Li nervously pushed open the door and shouted, "Something terrible has happened in Tae-pyung. Consort Shu has come to Baexian Palace." I was very curious. Why did she come to Baexian Palace at this time? Yan Li explained that since it was the Crown Prince's birthday soon, the Crown Princesses would be having an event to showcase their talents. And Consort Shu had always been interested in Taoist arts, so she came to ask Master Bai Xian for advice. But none of that matters. The important thing is that after they finish talking, according to palace rules, a samurai is supposed to escort the honored guest out. So no matter what happens then, you can't talk to him. Even so, Yan Li was still worried, so he pulled out a short blade and began slashing at my sleeve. "I'm going to mold you into Larilla's likeness, so that noble ladies like Consort Shu will be disappointed in you. A crisis can also be an opportunity. This time, you must make sure your malicious intentions are deeply imprinted in his mind." I kept repeating Yan Li's instructions, but when I opened my eyes, I found that he had torn a big hole in my sleeve. This was no longer pulling him, it was just an act. Meanwhile, in Lord Bai Xian's room, Consort Shu expressed her desire to learn some Taoist arts, but Lord Bai Xian politely declined her request. I cannot ignore Consort Shu's request, but recently the demonic energy on White Stone Mountain has been turbid and restless. As the White Immortal of the palace, I must resolve this matter first. Consort Shu expressed her understanding and said, "Then I won't take up any more of your time today." Lord Bai Xian respectfully replied, "Thank you for understanding my difficulties, Your Majesty. I will now arrange for warriors to escort you away from Bai Xian Palace." After saying this, he loudly called out Princess Tae-pyung's name. Upon hearing this, Consort Shu's face instantly turned bright red. Later, on the way to see Consort Shu off, I could always feel a burning gaze fixed on me, while Consort Shu also hoped with anticipation that the man before her would recognize her. As they parted, a hint of disappointment flashed across Consort Shu's face. "Haven't you recognized me yet?" she thought. But when she looked up, she noticed the red string she had given him was still with him. It wasn't that he couldn't recognize himself, but rather that he couldn't recognize himself. He was right beside me, yet I couldn't touch him. It was so painful. The head maid, witnessing this, turned ashen-faced. If this misunderstanding continued, something truly terrible would happen. Upon returning to Baexian Palace, I immediately boasted to Yan Li that Consort Shu must have lost interest in me, and I was now worried she would retaliate. Hearing this, Yan Li instead looked worried. "Are we being too cruel?" I comforted him, saying the crisis was over and he should be happy. Just then, Bai Xian's voice came from behind. "Tae-pyung, remember to bring your weapon on the Crown Prince's birthday, because Consort Ren has chosen you as her sword-fighting opponent this time." As if by some twist of fate, this year's birthday banquet was exceptionally lively. In contrast, the birthday celebrant, Crown Prince Xuan Yuan, was melancholy. This did not surprise me, because according to the novel, Crown Prince Xuan Yuan had buried himself in his studies since childhood. But at some point, he could no longer see any color other than the white of knowledge and the black of ink. So even amidst beautiful scenery, he wouldn't lament that he was a human being without meaning in life, like a puppet. Although his life was full of ups and downs, happiness seemed a distant dream to him. The one who restored color to Crown Prince Xuan Yuan's eyes was my sister, Zhu Lan. Zhu Lan, who had secretly slipped out of the palace, sat with Crown Prince Xuan Yuan on the rooftop, overlooking the panoramic view of Tiandu Palace. There, Crown Prince Xuan Yuan realized for the first time that Tiandu Palace was a beautiful place. This year's birthday was no different. Due to the monster's attack, the Crown Prince was unfortunately caught in the muddy current. For 3 days, while hiding in a crevice in the rocks awaiting rescue, Shi Jian stayed by his side and saved his life. Thus far, the image of the lovely girl remains etched in the memories of Crown Prince Xuan Yuan, which is also the core of the novel. Thinking about this, I suddenly felt a connection to myself. The development of this story feels so familiar. Just then, a voice came from behind me. It was the head maid of the Vermilion Bird Palace. She then briefly explained the rules of the sword dance to me. The sword dance must be performed with a real sword, and the person who cuts off the opponent's sleeve first is the winner. At this point, he suddenly changed the subject, but the imperial concubine is wearing such magnificent clothes. This is very disadvantageous for her. This made me feel a little resistant. Although my role was just to be a supporting character, I only needed to watch the imperial concubine display her martial arts skills. But I once swore I would never use a real sword again. Back then, to survive, my hands and clothes were stained with blood, which I deeply regret. So why is Lord Hakusen specifically instructing me to use a real sword now? There must be a reason for this old man's strange behavior. Just then, the head maid spoke, interrupting my thoughts. What wouldn't a martial artist understand? But when I looked up, I realized this person wasn't the head maid I knew. In the novel, the head maid of the Vermilion Bird Palace is described as having a quiet and gentle appearance, and she doesn't even have that name. With these questions in mind, I ventured to ask him, "How long have you been in the Vermilion Bird Palace?" The head maid replied, "I entered the Vermilion Bird Palace when I was 9 years old, more than 20 years ago." This made me question my own memory. The Vermilion Bird Palace shouldn't recruit just anyone. Could I have misunderstood? I then asked him why the noble consort had asked me to perform the sword dance. The head maid immediately revealed her guess. Although noble consort Ren could tolerate everything, she disliked the Hua Rongsu family. So, Her Highness probably wanted to use this martial arts competition as an opportunity to completely sever the knot in her heart, right? This surprised me. He spoke so directly, but I still questioned his claim. The imperial concubine must have known that the martial arts competition on stage was just for show, so what was the point of dressing up like that? The head maid was also very puzzled by this, and seeing this, I had no choice but to give up and indicated to him that he didn't need to worry. Acting is my area of expertise, and I guarantee that I will lose to the Empress without leaving a trace. Even if times have changed, what difference is there between the crown princess of a country and the head of a department? Although someone like the imperial concubine detests flattery, this is precisely my purpose. Soon, the crown prince's birthday banquet finally began. It was time for the concubines of the 4 great palaces of Tiandu Palace to showcase their talents. First to appear was the mistress of the White Tiger Palace. As the musical instruments played, the imperial concubine, dressed in white, danced gracefully. Her dance was like a flowing painting, completely captivating the audience. Next to take the stage was consort Shu, the mistress of the Azure Dragon Palace, who lightly swayed her sleeve. The heavenly capital palace, bathed in the crisp autumn air, was already ablaze with cherry blossoms, a sight of breathtaking beauty. At this moment, the head maid of the Vermilion Bird Palace stepped forward to remind me that it was my turn to perform. After taking the stage, Ren Yan first offered a wish. "Today is a day that even the heavens will be happy. I hope that my martial arts skills can move the heavens and make the heavenly capital kingdom prosperous forever." Unintentionally, he could move the heavens and grant the heavenly capital eternal prosperity. Having said this, he drew his long sword, ready for battle. Surprisingly, though his expression showed restraint, his hand gripping the sword trembled uncontrollably. Could it be that he, known as the flower of the crown princess, also felt pressured by the fear of failure? At that moment, I finally understood why the book referred to the imperial concubine as someone with courage. True courage isn't the absence of fear, but rather the ability to persevere even when afraid. Thinking of this, I lowered my head in shame. As a man, I had actually used his resentment towards me to achieve my own ends. He lived every moment with utmost seriousness, and I had abandoned my reverence for him. It seems I need to change my plans, so I launched my attack immediately. The person who blocked the sword and Yan were somewhat shocked. This was not the strength of a second-rate 17 samurai. It instantly reminded him of something from his childhood. His uncle had once said that no matter what happened, one should always look up, because once a person looks down and realizes they have climbed too high, they will tremble with fear. But because he was too young at the time, he didn't understand his uncle's meaning. But at this moment, he finally understood that no matter how high you reach, there will always be someone higher than you who will bravely forge ahead without trembling. Just looking at them made his fear naturally dissipate. Then, when he came to his senses and looked at me again, he found that his hands really weren't trembling anymore. This made him sigh inwardly. I might have finally gone mad. I have defeated many military generals in duels, but they all showed mercy because they had their own unspeakable difficulties. If they accidentally injured me, it would be a capital offense. Although this guy was also holding back, he was different from the others. It was as if he was saying to me, "Don't think you can take victory easily this time." Thinking of this, he immediately drew his sword and launched a counterattack. To his surprise, after blocking his attack, I swung my sword down at him. Seeing no way to avoid it, Ren and Yan could only parry with their swords. However, at the moment of impact, my longsword broke in two. This not only surprised Ren and Yan, but also stunned the ministers in the audience. At this moment, I hurriedly knelt down and bowed. As expected of consort Ren, the audience, who had recovered from their shock, immediately applauded and cheered. but Ren and Yan noticed something amiss. This fellow had not only used a fake sword, but had also deliberately left the hilt of his sword unattended. A moment later, the Emperor happily announced that Consort Ren had been rewarded with a gold hairpin. However, Ren and Yan were not happy. "I am not worthy to accept this reward," Ren said, "because this duel was unfair from the very beginning." With that, she threw a real sword in front of me. "Draw your sword, let's have another match." This made cold sweat break out on my forehead. There were too many people around, and obeying the consort's order now would be tantamount to courting death. But Ren and Yan only wanted to have a proper match with me. But when he looked at me again, I was immediately jolted. A murderous aura emanated from him, a palpable killing intent throughout my body. If he drew that sword, I might die. Just then, a scream rang out. A servant, his face contorted with terror, shouted, "Run! A monster is coming!" Upon hearing this, chaos erupted. Soon, countless monsters arrived. Seeing this, I knew I was in serious trouble. It was practically a horde of demons. But why are there so many monsters here? Never mind, saving lives is the priority now. It seems I have no choice but to disobey the temple and use the real sword. At this moment, a seriously injured samurai warned everyone to be careful, as contact with monster blood would cause them to lose consciousness and faint. Upon hearing this, I was immediately startled. Could it be a medium-level monster? However, no sooner had one crisis subsided than another arose, and a raging mudslide struck the palace. Moments later, Ren and Yan awoke in a cave. Seeing this, the head maid hurriedly reminded him not to make a sound, and told him that his majesty was unharmed, but the crown prince had been swept away by the mudslide. Therefore, the palace soldiers were searching White Stone Mountain. "Your Highness, you just need to hold on until then." A person with a bad feeling shouted at Yan. "What are you doing? Why didn't you show a look of resignation?" The head maid said calmly, "I'll shout to lure away the surrounding monsters in a moment. I hope your Highness will block the entrance and await rescue." Ren and Yan sobbed as they refused. "If I can't even protect my own people, what's the point of living? What's the point of going down there?" However, the head maid had already made up her mind and reminded him that as the master of the Vermilion Bird Palace, he needed to know when to abandon others. After saying that, he resolutely walked out of the cave. Soon, amidst shouts, the monsters slowly gathered around him. Under the relentless onslaught, his consciousness, stained with demon blood, gradually blurred. Seeing this, he hurriedly cut his thigh to stay conscious, but ultimately collapsed from exhaustion. Just then, another monster attacked him. With his last ounce of strength, he swung his sword at the monster, but failed to kill it. Seeing this, despair filled his face. It seemed this was the end for him. As the immortal lord unleashed his power, a sword light flashed, cleaving the demon in two. The head maid stared in disbelief at the scene before her. The severed part didn't bleed, but instead froze solid. I once heard in the palace that only the cold iron heavy sword in the White Immortal Palace could have such an effect. And because that sword was so heavy, only two people in the entire Heavenly Capital Palace could pull it out. One was Zhang Zidai, the deputy general known for his brute strength, and the other was Seo Tae-pyung, the Stone Creek warrior of the White Immortal Palace. I then signaled to him not to worry, that I was there to save them. But the next second, I fainted from the shock of losing too much energy. When I awoke, I found the head maid standing shakily before me. Upon seeing me, he finally lowered his guard and collapsed. Looking at the pile of corpses around me, I suddenly understood everything. It turned out that he had been guarding me the whole time I was unconscious. The head maid told me the location of the imperial concubine and urged me to hurry and rescue her. He, on the other hand, stayed here to delay the monster. Upon hearing this, I instantly recalled the contents of the novel, because the person I saw in the novel wasn't him. The character Ren Yan in the novel seemed brave and dignified, but deep down, he harbored an icy coldness. Could it be because he kept losing loved ones? After thinking it over, I simply hoisted the head maid onto my shoulder. As a man, I couldn't just stand by and watch someone die. The scene shifts, and the man and Yan, alone in the cave, are filled with unease because they can always hear the roars of monsters around them. Just as he was preparing to find another place to stay, a figure suddenly appeared at the cave entrance. Had a monster come looking for him by following the scent? But when he saw me and the head maid, he was completely taken aback. "Have you dealt with all the monsters in the vicinity?" I didn't answer, but gently placed the head maid on the ground. "He's in a dangerous situation right now." Hearing this, Ren and Yan hurriedly got up and gestured for me to carry the head maid while he cleared the way. I tried to calm him down, saying he already had too many wounds. "It's okay for people to scream hysterically. I don't want to lose anyone I love." I'll give you anything you want as long as he lives. Seeing this, I yelled at him to calm down. Ren and Yan, regaining their composure, immediately apologized, and I comforted him, saying that anyone would feel the same way in that situation. Afterwards, after I treated the head maid's wounds, Ren and Yan both breathed a long sigh of relief. I told him that Lord Bai Xian would personally handle a disaster of this scale, so as long as we waited here for a few days, everything would be fine. Ren and Yan asked how long I would stay, and I replied firmly that it would be no more than 3 days, because in the novel's plot, it took exactly 3 days to save the dying prince. But Ren and Yan felt that 3 days was too long for the head maid. I told him not to worry. There were still a few monsters outside, so we would just fight our way out after the fog cleared up tomorrow morning. Upon hearing this, Ren and Yan's expressions instantly turned into a mix of emotions. They hadn't expected that at this critical moment, the only person they could rely on was a descendant of their enemy, the Hua Rongzhu family. I comforted him, telling him not to think too much and to focus on only one goal: survival. Upon hearing this, Ren and Yan first expressed their surprise, then a smile appeared on their faces. That's right, you're absolutely right. After some time, Ren and Yan, who were preparing to rest, found themselves unable to fall asleep. So he suggested that I talk about my life experiences, but I hesitated to speak. Ren and Yan thought I had something to hide, but I asked him in return, "Have you forgotten that I am from the Hua Rongsu family?" After hearing this, Ren and Yan seemed to understand something. "Are you ashamed of what your family has done?" I immediately acknowledged his statement, which made Ren and Yan even more curious. "After the Hua Rongsu family was massacred, how did you survive?" I then recounted my entire experience. What surprised me was that when talking about happy things, he couldn't help but laugh out loud, and when talking about the injustices he suffered, he would clench his fists. Even after hearing it, she couldn't calm down for a long time. Ren Hayan never expected that someone with a life so different from hers would actually be living life to the fullest, just like her. Then Ren Hayan mentioned that my swordsmanship was very good, and asked if I had never longed for a higher platform. I replied that my biggest pursuit was to work less and earn more money, which made Ren Hayan laugh out loud. "You really are a special guy, but why does this guy seem more and more reliable?" Thinking of this, his face instantly turned red, but he quickly shook his head frantically. "I'm going crazy. What am I thinking?" Shu Enjai cleared his throat and continued, "But there are many easier and more lucrative jobs than being a warrior in the White Immortal Palace." I replied that the White Immortal's lifespan was running out, and until then, I wanted to stay by his side. Upon hearing this, Ren Hayan first smiled and then asked me, "As a descendant of the Hua Rongsu family, you should face a lot of hostility. What made you survive?" I responded directly that it was the opposite of a good thing. It was the sky I saw when I looked up from the dilapidated house, the wind that blew when I was practicing my sword with all my might. These things, which seem insignificant to others, are the reasons that keep me alive. "Consort Ren, what is your motivation for living?" Ren Hayan didn't answer but fell into deep thought. Unexpectedly, his thoughts were surprisingly similar to mine. It was the loyalty of the female leaders, the Vermilion Bird Palace being the women's aspiration, and the butterflies fluttering their wings in the courtyard. All these were reasons for my survival. After thinking it over, he fell asleep peacefully. The next day, Ren and Yan were awakened by my calls. I told them that the woman's condition had worsened again, and we had to leave now. "But if you get your hands on a monster's blood, you'll be in danger." Upon hearing this, Ren Hayan immediately thought of a plan. The next second, he directly ripped off my clothes. And so we led the head maid and charged towards the palace. Ren Hayan's face was filled with confidence. "With you by my side, I feel certain we can survive." Just then, a voice suddenly came from the palace entrance. "It seems Lord Zhang Lai is very busy, much busier than when I was here." When Zhang Lai looked up, he saw a familiar figure. "General, what brings you to the palace?" Deputy General Zhang Zitai chuckled. He was bored spending all day with the civil officials, so he decided to come and see for himself. This place was much more pleasant. He added, "This time, with the sudden appearance of the monster, there must have been a lot of trouble, right?" At this point, he suddenly slammed his wine glass on the table. "There's a monster in White Stone Mountain. It must be because of the flowing aura of the heavenly dragon. But whatever the reason, shouldn't that be Princess Ah Xian's job?" Zhang Lai didn't respond, but continued to press. "General, you're already someone from another palace. Why are you here serving in the palace?" This immediately made the atmosphere awkward. "Are you treating me like an uninvited guest?" "I actually came here because of that madman from Baixian Palace." I heard he killed hundreds of monsters in one night. Why isn't such a powerful guy serving in the palace? You should find him an official position. Zhang Lai was also helpless about this. I've already approached him, but he's already taken protecting the White Immortal Palace as his mission, so he might leave the White Immortal Palace when the time is right. Zhang Zitai continued. He also saved Consort Ren, and it was thanks to him slaying so many monsters that the Crown Prince was successfully rescued. He should be given some reward. But the civil officials wouldn't let go of certain things. Zhang asked him if it was because of his background. Zhang Zitai was eager to confirm, for a crime of betraying the emperor would not be forgotten even after generation after generation. You probably know that Yuan, the head of the Huarong Zhu family, is said to still be a nightmare for high-ranking officials in the capital when he walks around the palace with Tian Tijian. Seo Tae-pyung's extraordinary swordsmanship might remind people of Zhu Yuan. At this point, he suddenly revealed a smug look. But regardless, I still managed to get him a Taisheng sword and some gold and silver as a reward, and also made him a formal warrior. I hope he'll have the opportunity to make something of himself someday. Hearing this, Zhang Lai couldn't help but sigh. He remembered that his motto was work less, earn more, but now it seems he'd misjudged him. Meanwhile, I was asking Yan Li about Lan's condition. Yan Li told me that Lan was not in mortal danger, but what puzzled him was that his only relative was injured. But you don't seem as worried as I thought. I thought you'd be terrified. I said that Sister Lan wouldn't die so easily, but deep down I knew that, according to the novel, her life wasn't in danger in this incident. On the contrary, she made a great contribution to the Crown Prince. However, because Crown Prince Xuan Yuan was on the verge of death at the time, he only had vague memories, remembering the figure of a young girl. When the truth finally came to light, Crown Prince Xuan Yuan fell in love with the older sister regardless of everything. Just then, Yan Li's voice suddenly interrupted my thoughts. Is this the supreme holy sword? It's even heavier than I imagined. I reminded him not to draw the sword carelessly, as that would be very dangerous. Yan Li scoffed at this. Tae-pyung, aren't you underestimating me? I retorted. Have you forgotten that you broke that valuable vase before? Upon hearing this, Yan Li's face turned ashen. She then gently placed the Taisheng sword aside and began to think about how to get revenge. Soon, Yan Li suddenly spoke up. Now that she thought about it, she was really angry. Why did you speak to me so disrespectfully? Was I too gentle with people? To be honest, I'm a year older than Zhu Gongnu, and I'm a formal palace maid, so I'd better call you Sister Yan quickly. Wen Ci was speechless for a moment. Yan Li, what are you talking about? This made the situation awkward again. What was I expecting? Was it that I had lost, completely lost? Then, leaving behind the words that she needed to clean up, she turned and left without looking back. But he rushed back in a hurry and said with a worried look on his face, Tae-pyung, I heard that Consort Ren has come to Baixian Palace. After Ren Yan saw that I was safe and sound, he showed a happy look and said, It seems that you have recovered very quickly. Seeing my silence, Ren Yan continued, saying everything that should and shouldn't have been said at Baishi Mountain. So, are you going to bow your head and work like a stone now? If you feel that the maids are still a burden to you, I'll have them leave. Wen Ci and Yan Li immediately gave me the same look, and then I looked up and asked if that was all right. Ren Yan smiled and replied, Do I look like someone who needs protection? He then blushed deeply and covered his mouth, saying, Sorry, I laughed too loudly and was a bit rude. He then dismissed the maids. At this moment, Yan Li whispered, Tae-pyung, do you think you're lucky to be alive? I replied that it might not be what you think. At this moment, Ren Yan suddenly interrupted, saying that there were two reasons why she came to the White House without telling me beforehand. First, she wanted to see if you were all right. You saved my life, so it was only right and proper for her to come and see you. I was immediately terrified. You could have just told me to go to the Vermilion Bird Palace. That would have been far too much of an honor for me. Ren Yan smiled slightly. She hadn't expected you to say such polite things. You seemed to be in a good mood. At this point, he suddenly changed the subject and said, From now on, call me Swordsman. This is the second reason I came here. The warriors of Tiandu Palace are terrified of me, but you are different from them. You said you didn't want to get ahead, so I'll give you something else in return. When Ci looked troubled and said that teaching you swordsmanship might be a bit difficult. When Siren and Yan were taken aback for a moment, then he realized something. I just sensed that you were hiding some secret. Now tell me everything without missing a word. I then recounted everything about Consort Shu. Upon hearing this, Ren Yan couldn't help but burst into laughter. If you really like Consort Shu, that's a disaster, he exclaimed. But a moment later, he sat down beside me and apologized. I'm sorry, I was rude again. Upon seeing this, Yan Li and I were initially stunned, then quickly knelt before him. Ren He Yan, seeing this, was also helpless, as they could not immediately leave due to their status. Shuan Jai asked me why I wouldn't teach him swordsmanship. Do you think I would fall in love with you? You don't think I haven't even considered this, do you? I'm not Consort Shu, because Consort Shu is still young and her self-judgment is not strong enough. I was immediately taken aback. What Consort Ren said was too blunt, but it did make sense. At this moment, Ren Yan continued, "From your perspective, this matter is indeed difficult to handle, but I will keep an eye on it for you. However, I will keep an eye on the Azure Dragon Palace for you, so can you teach me swordsmanship now?" Upon hearing this, I seemed to see a dazzling light behind Ren Yan, but I still politely declined his request. It wasn't me who saved Consort Ren, but you yourself. Ren Yan immediately understood the deeper meaning of my words. Let's leave it at that for today, but I'll come again next time. After Ren Yan left, Yan Li and I looked at each other simultaneously, and then we hugged each other and jumped around excitedly. All the crises were finally over, and we were free. As evening fell, Ren and Yan stood alone at the door, lost in thought. They realized that living didn't need any grand, dramatic reasons. Simply looking at the beautiful moon made them feel that being alive was good enough. Seo Tae-pyung must have survived too, right? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but blush. The next day, I told Lord Bai Xian that the kitchen was out of rice, which surprised him a little. "Tae-pyung, aren't you in charge of managing the ingredients?" But upon learning that Yan Li had insisted on cooking and ruined all the rice, Lord Bai Xian couldn't help but sigh. What's going on with a maid who can't even cook properly? Yan Li immediately protested upon hearing this, but she couldn't eat soup and rice for 27 consecutive days. Afterwards, Lord Bai Xian gave her some gold and silver and instructed us to go out of the palace to buy rice. Throughout the journey, Yan Li kept looking at me with guilt, saying, "You keep sighing so heavily, I'm not used to it. Please don't complain anymore." However, what she didn't know was that the reason I sighed was because the process of leaving Tiandu Palace was too complicated. It was so vast that it took an hour to walk out, and there were various checks and identity verifications along the way. The thought of carrying heavy bags back made me sigh again. But looking at the dazzling array of goods and the bustling market, my mood improved considerably. It seems things have been quite peaceful lately. I wonder if it's due to Consort Ren's help. Consort Shu's side has been very quiet. Perhaps I'm just worrying unnecessarily. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but shed tears of emotion. Peace is so wonderful. I want it to be like this forever. Just then, Yan Li suddenly spoke up. "I heard from the maids that there's a reason why the selection of the virtuous consort was postponed. After a series of complex selections, the woman who finally obtained the title of virtuous consort ran away because she didn't want to take the position." He couldn't help but sigh as he said this. This world is truly strange. There are actually people who don't want to be the mistress of Chuanwu Palace. If it were me, I certainly wouldn't let this opportunity pass me by. Hearing this, something suddenly occurred to me. There's not much time left before the novel's story begins, and I didn't expect the position of Consort Xian to still be vacant. I hope I won't get dragged into the harem again. I'll let Consort Shu and Consort Ren go, but please, please don't let them get involved with Consort Xian and Consort Do anymore. Let them live a life of obscurity and obscurity. That's the kind of life I want. At the same time, a Taoist priest inside the Vermilion Bird Palace respectfully spoke. "Your Highness, Consort Shu, I have nothing more to teach you." Consort Shu looked puzzled. "I don't remember learning anything remarkable." This immediately alarmed the Taoist priest. He admitted his incompetence and said, "It's not that I'm incapable of helping your teacher. You should find someone more capable to guide you." After the Taoist priest left, he summoned the head maid. "The meeting, when is the next court assembly?" The head maid told him it was at the beginning of next month. "What is it you need?" Upon hearing this, Consort Shu slowly rose. "In that case, I'll go directly to the Ministry of Personnel to obtain permission. I think I should still ask Immortal Bai to teach me Taoist arts, but Immortal Bai must be very busy. Even officials of higher rank can't see him at will. If he can't come, I might as well go directly to Immortal Bai's palace to ask for guidance. But what kind of hairpin should I wear when I go? Isn't an iris hairpin too childish?" As he said this, he unconsciously became shy. Seeing this, the maid's face turned black. Was Consort Shu going to find Seo Tae-pyung? Little did she know that to Seo Tae-pyung, he was like a death knight wielding a scythe. It turned out that the palace held a grand tea party for the crown princess twice a month. At this moment, Ren Yan spoke first, saying that she had heard that Consort Chen went to Baixian Palace twice a week. Consort Chen explained that she had developed a strong interest in magic since the last birthday celebration. He had originally studied immortal arts with a Taoist priest from Hangxia Mountain for 2 months, but it wasn't a good fit, so he immediately gave up. This was Ren Yanlu's account. Ren Heian was slightly surprised by this. Chen Xiufei's performance at the birthday celebration was amazing. She never expected that Chen Xiufei was such a talented person with superb skills. Chen Xiufei quickly returned the compliment, saying, "I was also impressed by Consort Ren's swordsmanship." After she finished speaking, the room fell silent again, which made Ren and Yan slightly embarrassed. Although everyone wanted to get closer to each other and create a more harmonious atmosphere, they all seemed rather relaxed. Since that's the case, shall we bring up something interesting? But before he could speak, Chen Xiufei suddenly asked, "Why did you insist on having a martial arts master from the White Immortal Palace teach you swordsmanship?" Upon hearing this, Ren Heian was taken aback for a moment, then explained that it was because that martial arts master was of a very high level, and it was well worth learning from him. Chen Xiufei continued to press, "Is that all the reason?" Ren Heian was eager to confirm, so he changed the subject, saying that if the White Immortal taught him immortal arts, he would definitely improve greatly. But the White Immortal was always very busy, and he had heard that the White Immortal did not accept disciples. Chen Xiufei immediately expressed her gratitude for Consort Ren's reminder and said that she would definitely not trouble Lord Bai Xian too often. This puzzled Ren Heian greatly. He seemed very intelligent, but didn't such an intelligent person know that his affection might kill Seo Tae-pyung? Although I always have a subtle feeling when I think of Seo Tae-pyung, I know in my heart that if I don't control the boundaries, he might lose his life. I've been so insistent, yet Chen Xiufei can do whatever he wants. It's simply outrageous. Thinking this, Ren Heian felt his face flush. When he came to his senses, he found Chen Xiufei looking at him with a strange expression. Had Chen Xiufei seen right through him? The scene shifts, and the White Immortal tells me that he will teach Chen Xiufei magic twice a week from now on, and asks me to be his bodyguard on the way here. Upon hearing this, I burst into tears. Didn't Consort Ren promise to help me? At this moment, Chen Xiufei was staring at me with a look of infatuation. "Did you come to Qinglong Palace when I was bedridden?" I asked anxiously, my face full of trepidation. Chen Xiufei continued, "I would be very happy if you could pretend to know me." I told her that she shouldn't just strike up a conversation with any martial arts master, which made Chen Xiufei's face instantly turn red. "Your loyalty is truly reliable." Seeing this, I was speechless. I felt embarrassed after just a few words. Then Chen Xiufei asked me if I had received the jewelry. She also asked if I had received the divine gift. I gave her a few perfunctory answers, but just as I was satisfied with my response, Chen Xiufei suddenly started sobbing for no apparent reason. "You seemed like a dignified man when we were at the Azure Dragon Palace, but why are you so cold to me now? This leaves me completely at a loss. Consort Ren, didn't you say you'd help me?" Meanwhile, inside the Vermilion Bird Palace, Ren and Yan were muttering to themselves. "Chen Xiufei should be at the White Immortal Palace by now, right? Although I promised, I failed to keep my word." He then summoned the head maid and instructed her to prepare to depart for Bai Xian Palace, which surprised the head maid. Xiufei seemed to be at Bai Xian Palace at the moment, but seeing Consort Ren's nonchalant attitude, he quickly changed his mind and said, "I'll go prepare right away." But the thought of the scene to come sent a chill down the head maid's spine. She felt it was about to turn into a bloodbath. Meanwhile, Zhu Lan finally recovered, and he had prepared a gift to congratulate me on becoming a full-fledged martial artist. When he arrived at Baixian Palace, he found two head maids from the inner palace waiting outside. At this moment, Yan Li suddenly ran up to him and told him that Consort Ren and Chen Xiufei had come to Baixian Palace. Upon hearing this, Zhu Lan was stunned. Didn't the last letter say that Chen Xiufei's problems had been resolved? Yan Li responded, "Isn't there a saying that one person leaves and another comes?" Consort Ren's gaze towards Tae-pyung was unusual. Hearing this, Zhu Lan was shocked. "What are you talking about?" Yan Li explained that Consort Ren initially said he would help, so we could only believe him. But if you had seen the look in his eyes when he came to Baixian Palace to find Tae-pyung today, you would have thought the same thing as me. Just as I was thinking this, a voice suddenly interrupted the two of them. Looking over, they saw Zhang Leijin, the chief warrior of the Crimson Palace, had also arrived. But upon seeing Zhu Lan, he couldn't help but ask, "Are you the palace maid I saw behind the White Fairy Palace?" Zhu Lan was eager for confirmation. "I didn't expect you to still remember me." At this moment, Yan Li suddenly spoke up. "Excuse me, Lord Zhang Lai, a distinguished guest has arrived at the White Immortal Palace, so may I tell you why you have come?" Zhang Lai was very curious about which noble person it was, which Yan Li couldn't bring himself to say, so he could only say that it was someone from the inner palace. Upon hearing this, Zhang Lai didn't press further, but this time he was also there on imperial orders, and each palace had to send a warrior to participate in the search plan for the Crimson Palace. Zuolan immediately guessed that he was going to find Consort Xian, but he was met with a sharp gaze. Seeing this, Zuolan hurriedly apologized, and seeing his frightened expression, Zhang Lai's face instantly showed a trace of guilt. He then coughed and said, "It has been more than a week since Consort Xian fled the palace. As the master of Chuanwu Palace, I am not clear about the situation. This matter cannot be left unattended indefinitely, so your majesty has ordered that Consort Xian be brought back." Zuolan asked if she was planning to invite Tae-pyung. Zhang Lai didn't answer directly, but instead asked what his relationship with Tae-pyung was. Seeing this, Yan Li's expression was very complicated. Lord Zhang Lai is acting very strangely today. Is he jealous? But when Zhang Lai learned from Zhu Lan that it was his younger brother, he breathed a long sigh of relief, which surprised Yan Li, who was actually relieved upon hearing it was his brother. What kind of magic do these siblings possess? The younger brother attracted 2 crown princesses, while the older sister attracted the samurai captain of the Red Palace. It's one thing that the Snow Palace maiden is beautiful and gentle, but what about that guy who sees soup and rice as his whole life? At this moment, Zhang Lai spoke again. "Since he's your family, I'll tell you a little more. The deputy general is also very interested in him, so he wants him to take an official position." Upon hearing this, Zhu Lan immediately beamed with joy. "You mean Tae-pyung can finally rise above his station?" Zhang Lai nodded, his face flushed with embarrassment. Just then, the gates of Bai Xian Palace slowly opened. Upon seeing that it was Consort Ren, Zhang Lai hurriedly stepped forward to pay his respects, never expecting to meet the consort at Bai Xian Palace. Ren and Yan spoke directly. "I'm here to spar with the Snow Warrior." But he quickly realized something was wrong. "I mean, the weather is nice today, so I came to find this third-rate warrior who does nothing to practice his swordsmanship." But when he learned that Zhang Lai had come to ask me to join the special task force searching for the virtuous consort, he asked if I could wait until after my sword practice. Zhang Lai immediately agreed. After Ren and Yan took me away, Zhu Lan shook Yan Li, crying, "Miss Yan, think of a solution quickly. What are we going to do with Tae-pyung now?" Yan Li's gestured to him not to worry, saying that no matter how much someone likes another, distance will eventually cause their hearts to drift apart. So regarding the special operations team that Lord Zhang mentioned, let's have Tae-pyung join. Meanwhile, after receiving instruction from Master Bai Xian, Consort Chen couldn't help but praise Master Bai Xian for his profound mastery of immortal arts. "I've finally found a teacher who can guide me." However, Lady Bai Xian subtly expressed her refusal, suggesting that rather than accepting my teachings, Consort Chen needs to awaken on her own. "I believe you will gain a lot of inspiration in the future." Later, on the way back to the palace, Consort Chen blushed unconsciously as she thought about what had happened on the way there. Although my tearful appearance frightened him somewhat, in a way, it was also a reason for me to see him again. If I said a few words to ease the tension, our relationship could return to normal. Just then, the head maid suddenly reported that Consort Ren had come to Baixian Palace and taken Bai Zuwu away. Upon hearing this news, Consort Chen's eyes immediately turned cold. Seeing this, the head maid was shocked, because she had never seen Consort Chen with such an expression before. Meanwhile, after arriving at the Vermilion Bird Palace, I sighed deeply. Was I shortening my lifespan by doing this? Ren and Yan Zhizhai replied indifferently, "Since I promised you, I will never stand idly by." Most importantly, at this point he suddenly dismissed the maids, and Xuanji said with a shy smile, "Perhaps I also have some confused feelings for you." This startled me. "Consort Ren, what nonsense are you spouting?" Ren and Yan, with a nonchalant air, replied that she was also a woman, and wasn't this a natural phenomenon? You should also consider that kind of fleeting confusion. I'm telling you how I feel. You don't have to say anything, but please give me some time to process my thoughts. There's still some time, so please don't put too much pressure on me. Am I suddenly feeling utterly hopeless? Did he also think I wasn't dead fast enough? After this incident, on the way out of the Vermilion Bird Palace, Consort Chen actually came here. I heard him say with a hint of complaint, "So you went to the Vermilion Bird Palace this time." I immediately apologized to him. Consort Chen, however, said I was not wrong, The imperial concubine had taken me away, and I could not disobey her. At this point, his eyes suddenly turned cold. He hadn't expected the imperial concubine of the Vermilion Bird Palace to be so fond of visiting other people's homes. But thankfully, I ran into you again. I apologize for my behavior before. I'm someone who cries easily, so wouldn't it be too much for you to forget about this? But don't pretend nothing happened, or act like you've forgotten everything on the surface, while still remembering it in your heart. Anyway, I will still go to Baishan Palace to formally apologize to you. After saying that, he ran away with a shy expression. After I told my sister and Yanli everything, their faces turned ashen, but they quickly cheered up again. Taping, don't worry, I've thought of a way to save your life. The next day, Zhang Lai, who was working on the construction site, looked into the distance without hope. It seemed that he couldn't take the warrior from Baishan Palace with him now. He seemed to want to protect the White Fairy Palace and really enjoyed that leisurely life. He must really hate the special forces, right? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel a pang of regret. What a talented person. Just then, a quarrel broke out at the gate. When he went over, he realized it was me who had come looking for him. So I told him directly about my determination to join the Special Operations team. Seo Tae-pyung will prove my loyalty to His Majesty with my actions and enthusiasm. Hearing this, Zhang Lai looked puzzled. Didn't he want to work less and earn more? But in the end, he agreed to my request. He then announced the precautions to everyone. Knowing Consort Xian's location was crucial, requiring everyone to be adaptable. Because if Consort Xian discovered him, he might escape again, so everyone had to be extremely careful during their actions. This made me fall into deep thought. It seems that Consort Xian fled not long after ascending to the position, so the information we have is insufficient. But I have read the novel, so I know the general outline. Bao Linghua, the mistress of Xuanwu Palace, was a commoner woman with no background. At the time, there were many dissenting voices in the court. But after the ministers learned that she had overcome the divine flesh, they all agreed with her with great fear and trepidation. This is because he possesses the ability to read minds. In addition, he is a master of concealed weapons and stealth, and his eyesight and swordsmanship are also excellent. Because he used to be a herbalist who made his home in the mountains, he is not only agile but also a good actor, making him difficult to detect when disguised. What puzzles me is why he wanted to run away. But anyway, since the search has begun, I might as well put on a show. Judging from the novel, even if I do nothing, Consort Xian will be found eventually. My goal was to stay as far away from the consequences as possible. But as a member of that imposing special operations team, Seo Tae-pyung was only assigned to stake out an entrance in Xuanwu City. Half a month later, the entire special operations team hadn't found a single piece of information about Consort Bao. During this time, I was either pretending to be busy or on my way to get some soup. Imagining Lord Zhang's solemn expression, a sense of guilt welled up inside me. But no matter what, eating was the priority. A bowl of pork soup with rice was brought over by the waiter, and soon a steaming bowl of soup and rice was served. "Sir, you're here again? Don't you get tired of eating soup and rice every day?" I shook my head. Nothing tastes better than soup and rice. The next day, I strolled around the neighborhood as usual, exchanged information with the samurai I was traveling with, and finally ate one last bowl of that longed-for soup and rice before heading back to my quarters. Another half-month passed, and the team leader was puzzled by the lack of progress. The consort Xian should at least have bought something or changed her clothes, so why hadn't such a frantic search yielded any trace of her presence? He then suggested to Zhang Lai that they send more personnel, but Zhang Lai refused. This was because the Special Operations team was expanding. If the Special Operations team expands, things will become complicated. At this point, he suddenly changed the subject. "I've received His Majesty's orders. Everyone has been out for so long, it's time to return to your respective departments." Hearing this, I silently lowered my head. It seemed I hadn't heard anything about the White Fairy Palace in a long time. Although my friend would be taking care of my work there, filling the void left by my absence for so long wouldn't be easy. The most important thing is that Lord Baishan's lifespan is almost over. The reason I have been guarding Baishan Palace is so that I can be by his side before he passes away. After all, I learned a lot from him, and although I can't do anything for him, I still want to serve him well on his final journey. So, let's bring the search for Bao Xianfei to a perfect end. As evening approached, I returned to the restaurant. According to the novel, Bao Xianfei often remarked on how much he missed the cherry blossom fragrance he frequented at Chungxiang Pavilion. At first, I always thought Chungxiang Pavilion was a famous scenic spot, but I didn't expect it to be a restaurant. They practically summoned the waiter to my side. Although this kind of life is leisurely and carefree, so much time has passed. I think it's time for Bao Xianfei to return to Tiandu Palace. After that, the room fell silent. Even though I recognized him on the very first day, I've pretended not to know him for the past month, simply because I don't want to go back too soon. Thinking of this, I broke the silence once again. The maids of Chuanwu Palace are very worried about you. Is there some reason why you must come out? Bao Xianfei was eager to confirm. My reason for escaping the palace is. As he spoke, he turned and ran away while I wasn't looking. A moment later, he looked behind him and saw no one and let out a long sigh of relief. But the next second, I appeared out of thin air in front of him. Seeing this, he was startled at first, then fled without a word. And so it went, he ran, I chased, until finally he was nearly caught. At this moment, I gently pulled Bao Xianfei up and said, "Let's sit down and talk." Soon after I sat down at the table, I immediately apologized to him. I am just a lowly samurai, and this is the only way I can trap Lady Xianfei. Please forgive me. At this point, I pressed him further about his reasons for fleeing Tiandu Palace. Hearing this, Bao Xianfei remained silent for a few seconds, but ultimately revealed the truth, because I wanted to say a proper goodbye to everyone. When I was very young, I was abandoned on Beishi Mountain because of a serious illness. I survived until now thanks to everyone's help. They included the herbalists in the market, the old lady in the restaurant, and my good friend Xiao Jin. I just wanted to tell them that I had entered the harem and would never see them again. Hearing this, I fell into deep thought. Entering the harem and becoming the mistress of a palace was the dream of many women, but such a glamorous life had too many rules and regulations. Even going to an outer palace required the trouble of maids. Leaving the heavenly capital palace required convincing all the officials in the court, who found this girl abandoned on White Stone Mountain, who gave this lost girl directions on the mountain, and who provided her with ways to make a living. So it was clearly unacceptable for him to suddenly leave without saying goodbye. Thinking of this, I suddenly recalled scenes from my childhood. I never imagined that he had had the same experience as me. Just then, Bao Xianfei suddenly shifted his gaze to a spot not far away. "Thank you for pretending not to see me all this time. I will definitely repay you properly when I return to Xuanwu Palace." As she finished speaking, the warriors nearby noticed them. "Look, it's Lady Xianfei." Unexpectedly, it was Seo Tae-pyung who performed the service again. At this moment, I suddenly asked Lady Xianfei, "Have you thought of other people or just a few?" Before Xianfei could respond, Zhang Lai, who had come upon hearing the question, suddenly sensed something was amiss. "Why does this kid have a dangerous aura?" Just as I was wondering, I suddenly released a smoke bomb, then chopped off the table leg, and then flew to the roof with Xian. Seeing this, Zhang Lai immediately sensed something was wrong. Seo Tae-pyung, a member of the Special Operations team, had betrayed them. As night fell, led by Bao Xianfei, we finally hid in a warehouse where rice was stored. To be on the safe side, we piled up some sacks in front of the door to protect you from the pain. After everything was arranged, Consort Bao finally showed a relieved smile. This was a place I used to often spend my time, which puzzled me greatly. "Didn't you shout earlier that you wanted to leave Xuanwu City?" Now, Consort Bao explained smugly. "I can shout loudly, the other 5 should have heard me, right? They must think we've escaped outside Xuanwu City, so we just need to wait until the guard is at its lowest before we leave." However, I disagreed. They wouldn't give up easily because they would receive the Tai Xin sword as a reward for bringing you back to the palace. So, in their eyes, you are now a living, breathing Tai Xin sword, which puzzled Consort Bao greatly. Then why did you choose to abandon the Taixin sword? Wasn't handing me over to the chief warrior the best decision? You betrayed the master. Don't you know how severe the punishment you'll face? I reassured him not to worry, as I already had a Taixin sword. I could simply hand over the existing one and endure a little more physical pain, which would resolve the issue. Before that, let's deal with your lingering attachment. At this point, I suddenly changed the subject. "But Consort Bao, after you return to Xuanwu Palace, could you say a few words in my defense?" Seeing the surprised look on Consort Bao's face, I continued, "Don't you understand why I'm helping you?" Consort Bao shook her head. "I added that if you were to return to the palace like this, you would surely regret it for the rest of your life. I have never regretted anything in my life because I would never make a choice that I would regret, even if it resulted in a life-threatening outcome. I do not regret helping Consort Chen. Even knowing the situation would become complicated, I don't regret practicing swordsmanship with the imperial concubine. So it's only natural to lend a hand when someone is in pain." Upon hearing this, Consort Bao's expression instantly became subtle. But this is the first time you've met me. How can you be sure I'm someone you can help? I explained that it's because you escaped from the heavenly capital palace, and despite the riches and honors, you can't let go of everything from the past. At this point, I suddenly felt confused. You said my choice was strange, but actually it's you who's strange, who would abandon the position of palace master and run away? So you've always cared a lot about those fates, haven't you? Upon hearing this, a tear immediately welled up in Consort Bao's eye. This was the first time everyone in the world had laughed at me for being crazy, for abandoning the heavenly capital palace, a position that every woman envied. But only I knew how important the bond I shared with everyone was. But no one has ever understood my heart, except for Seo Tae-pyung, who is standing in front of me now. This person should be trustworthy. I want to tell him the secret that has been buried deep in my heart. When I was a child, I had a fever, but my family was very poor. They couldn't afford to support a child with a fever, so they abandoned me in Beishi Mountain. Fortunately, an old lady found me. Although she was just an old lady who made a living by digging up herbs on Beishi Mountain, her hands were really warm and her voice was very gentle. She herself couldn't even fill her own stomach, but she took care of me in a very meticulous way. Just days before my fever was almost gone, the old woman abandoned me on the street because she couldn't take it anymore. Even though I was just a small child, I ate too much for an ordinary person, but in the end, I survived. After the divine heat subsided, I regained my strength, mastered a light body skill I had never learned before, and gained a photographic memory. But even now, I can't forget the old woman's expression when she left. She held my hand and cried for a long time, repeatedly saying sorry. So for the past month, I've met many people, but I still haven't found the old lady who was the most important to me. This is the only trace he left me. He saved my life, but all I left him with was guilt. Now I just want to stand tall in front of him and tell him that the wound I left on White Stone Mountain is doing very well now. I was even chosen by the court official to become a virtuous concubine, and I will live a life of luxury for the rest of my life. This made me momentarily dazed, because I survived because of you. It's not that I can't understand what he wanted to say to the old lady, because I also have people I want to convey this message to. Do you want to ask me directly? Is Consort Xian willing to help you find that old woman? Upon hearing this, Consort Xian immediately expressed her gratitude to me and said that once she returned to Xunwu Palace, she would risk her life to help me clear my name of the crimes. However, I wore a serious expression. But before that, I hope you can promise me one thing. That is, you absolutely cannot move up, right where I was staying. That's you over there. You absolutely cannot be pleased. As soon as news of Consort Bao's escape reached the palace, the crown princesses began discussing it. They heard it was warriors from the White Fairy Palace. It's truly worrying. Consort Chen echoed, "Why make enemies of the Special Operations Force? If the Tang court investigates, they won't let him off." Ren Yan eagerly confirmed, "I will go and check on the situation between Tang Shangyuan and others. If this matter escalates further, my magical arts will have to be deployed." Seeing the tide turning against her, Consort De the White Tiger interjected, "I'm worried about Consort Bao." The atmosphere immediately became awkward. Then Ren Yan quickly changed the subject. "Head maid Anling, you must be very worried too, right?" Anling nodded. "The three of you are as precious as a sacred text. Consort Xian will definitely return." At this moment, Consort Chen asked the head maid if she had seen Consort Xian. Anling was eager to confirm, as Consort Xian was a clever, kind, and beautiful woman. However, Consort Chen was puzzled because she hadn't seen either the warriors from Baixian Palace. How was she persuaded? Meanwhile, Ren and Yan, standing nearby, seemed to be deep in thought as well, which surprised Consort De. It seemed the two were quite worried about Consort De's meeting with Su Wei, leaving them somewhat at a loss. Then Consort Chen spoke again. "I think Consort Ren's words make sense. I just wonder how Tang Shangyuan will act after hearing about the situation." Ren and Yan, under the guise of helping Consort Bao, hurriedly said, "I will send someone to continue to inquire about the situation right now." Upon hearing this, Consort Chen, using Consort Bao's name, chimed in, "My head maid also knows a member of the Tang Shangyui, and I will inquire about the situation in detail." Seeing this, Consort De couldn't help but sigh. When will the relationship between the Crown Princess and the Crown Prince be harmonious? Meanwhile, after Xuanwu Temple relaxed its guard, Consort Bao and I finally emerged from the storeroom. Consort Bao's face was beaming with smiles. "Having you here always makes me feel safe," she said, giving me confidence that we would soon achieve our goal, and then I happily went back. However, a week later, we still hadn't found any clues about the old woman. During this time, we went to White Stone Mountain and escaped from the Special Operations team, and we also contacted underground intelligence dealers, who also escaped from the Special Operations team. Right now, Consort Bao is squatting on the ground, looking utterly dejected. What should we do now? I'm too embarrassed to ask you for help any longer, and the maids of Chunwu Palace won't continue guarding a palace without a master. But then he thought again and cheered up. After all, he had tried his best, so he had no regrets. Seo Tae-pyung, thank you. However, I felt a little unwilling. Hadn't the underground intelligence dealers sent any news yet? Why don't we go back there and take a look? After obtaining Consort Bao's consent, we found the intelligence merchant again. Persistence pays off, and this time we finally learned everything. The old woman's name was Nan Beiyan. She used to run a tea business in the eastern part of Tiandu Kingdom. However, due to a natural disaster, she lost her family and tea garden, and then moved to Beishi Mountain to make a living by digging for medicinal herbs. 6 years ago, she finally died of an infectious disease. After hearing this, the intelligence merchant handed over a bamboo slip. It contained the testimony of a military officer from the heavenly capital palace who had disposed of her body, detailing his abandonment of her. After carefully reading the contents of the bamboo slips, Consort Bao was deeply moved. It turned out that the old woman hadn't abandoned herself because of hardship, but rather to avoid contracting an infectious disease. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but choke up. I sat beside him silently for a long time. After a while, I brought him a bowl of hot rice. Now that you have achieved your goal, let's return to the palace before dawn. However, Consort Bao felt very guilty. She said, I'm sorry you ran away from the Special Operations team to help me fulfill my wish, running around everywhere, but ultimately it was all for nothing. I, on the other hand, didn't think much of it. At least you know that the old lady knew that even in her last moments, she was thinking of me. Consort Bao shook her head. I regret it so much. Sometimes I often wonder why I didn't die when it happened. Why did they share their meager remaining food and medicine with a stranger who was practically dead? If it weren't for searching for medicine for a sick child, what were the chances of an old man gathering herbs in the mountains contracting an infectious disease? So what I regret is that I gritted my teeth and survived. At the time, I did it so as not to be a burden on my grandmother. At the time, in order not to be a burden to the old lady, I thought about escaping. But when I opened the door and saw the endless valley, I realized that I didn't have that much courage. This instantly plunged me into memories. Back then, in order to survive, I had killed many villains, but they also had their own families and felt sorrow and grief. Thinking this, I suddenly spoke. Your Highness, if you regret it, then try to regret it. Everyone is destined to regret some things in their life. That's just human nature. Not a mistake. Just after I helped Consort Bao resolve her regrets, he finally decided to return to the palace. But before that, he asked me to do one last thing, to erect a tombstone for the old lady. After the tombstone was erected, Consort Xian tied the only piece of cotton cloth she had to it. Grandma, I promise you, from now on I will hold my head high and live a valuable life that I can be proud of. This is what I said suddenly. Anyway, hello, let's not talk about the maidservant anymore. Consort Bao smiled broadly. I am now the mistress of Chunwu Palace. After this, we finally embarked on our journey back to the palace. Thinking of the help I had given her these past few days, Consort Bao immediately promised to reward me handsomely upon returning to the palace. However, he was puzzled because he had only been a commoner before and was unfamiliar with the rules of the palace, so he was not quite sure what kind of reward would be appropriate. But he had also heard that samurai dreamed of entering the imperial court. Before he could finish speaking, I interrupted him. I have no interest in getting ahead, but it's your lack of understanding of the court's rules that worries me a little. Consort Bao was quite puzzled by this. Couldn't such things be learned gradually? In that case, I hope that no matter what happens when you enter the taking gate, you will not panic. Soon upon arriving at taking gate, the warriors swarmed towards us. Seeing this, Consort Bao panicked. It's not what you think, she said. I just wanted to confirm something outside the palace. In contrast, I, who had been subdued, remained unusually calm, for I had anticipated all of this. The court would likely discuss my crimes, but they could not hold Consort Bao accountable, because only the emperor and the crown prince could hold the crown princess accountable. The emperor, wanting to groom the crown prince to become emperor, would eventually entrust him with the decision-making power. However, the crown prince was not interested in the crown princess, so Consort Bao was able to retain her power unscathed. This is exactly the plot development in the novel, where the master of Chuanwu Palace would occasionally express his opinions in the hall, and the senior officials dared not ignore his suggestions. Thinking of this, a meaningful smile appeared on my lips, because from the very beginning, everything was proceeding according to my plan. A moment later, upon returning to Chuanwu Palace, Consort Bao immediately inquired about my situation. My maid, Chang and Lin, explained that I had been assigned to the detachment and had been leading you on your escape, so it was only natural that I was captured. This made Consort Bao feel extremely guilty. He was only helping me resolve a regret in my heart, and yet this one thing caused countless people to worry and fear for me. Just because of our different statuses, the outcomes we encountered were vastly different. He and I aren't old acquaintances, so is it really worth it for someone I'm meeting for the first time? Meanwhile, Vice General Zhang Zidai found Zhang Lai, the chief of the Shigong warriors, and heard that the kid from Baixian Palace had caused trouble again. He performed a great service by saving the imperial concubine last time, so he should be treated leniently. I will help him in court tomorrow. At this point, he couldn't help but burst into laughter again. Now is the perfect opportunity to make him owe a favor and kidnap him to the palace. You should persuade him well. If he is willing to accept a reduced sentence, make him put on the palace's samurai uniform immediately. Afterwards, Zhang Lai, on his way to prison, felt increasingly troubled. Ordinary persuasion probably wouldn't work, would it? That guy's mind was as hard as stone. How could he possibly convince him? However, after seeing me, it was a completely different story. They'd do anything I asked for. Locking someone up and not feeding them, isn't that going too far? I know you were quite flustered running around when you suddenly came back, but you should at least send me things on time. Seeing this, Zhang Lai immediately ordered a warrior to fetch a bowl of soup and rice from the outer palace kitchen. This brought tears of emotion to my eyes. Lord Zhang Lai truly understands me best. Could you also bring me some pickled cabbage while you're at it? By the way, the spices should be a 2:1 ratio of Nanmen grass powder and pepper powder. If you find it bland, add some salt. This happened just as Consort Bao returned from her unauthorized escape. If it's too bland, add some salt. Right after Consort Bao secretly returned to the palace, the Crown Prince personally delivered his verdict. Consort Bao Linghua, hear my decree. You violated the rules of the inner palace by leaving the palace without permission. This is a serious crime and cannot be dealt with hastily. I understand that you are new to Chuanwu Palace and not yet fully aware of the situation, and based on the testimony, you did not have any evil motives, so I will let it go this time. However, this is not out of mercy, but a warning, hoping that you will feel ashamed of the crimes you have committed and set an example by reflecting on your actions. However, Lin's face remained troubled after reading the verdict. In short, they'd let him off this time, but if he committed the same offense again, they'd kill him. Fortunately, he escaped this time, thank goodness. But just then, he suddenly noticed that Consort Bao's complexion was not good. It turned out that Consort Bao was still resentful about the matter of causing my imprisonment. He was only trying to help me, but he was being tortured as a result. Isn't torture a very severe punishment? And Lin explained that it depends on the severity of the crime. Ordinary criminals might only serve 10 days in court, while serious offenders might die from excessive bleeding due to severe torture. Upon hearing this, Consort Bao's face immediately filled with worry. Is this true? Seo Tae-pyung has helped me so much. Should I do something? Thinking of this, he suddenly spoke up. And Lin, can you help me one last time? Just give the letter to the Special Operations team, apologize for what happened, and ask them to handle Seo Tae-pyung properly. This surprised Lin. Your Highness, you are the mistress of Chuanwu Palace. Isn't it beneath your dignity to write a letter to those lowly warriors? After thinking for a moment, Consort Bao came up with another idea. Let's write a letter to the person in charge of the palace. But could you help me out? After getting Lin's consent, he continued to ask, do you know anyone who can help Seo Tae-pyung? Lin thought for a moment. He was a warrior of the White Immortal Palace. It would be better to just tell Lord White Immortal. After all, Bai Xian was treated as a third-rank official or higher, and he was also a close friend of the late emperor. Even high-ranking officials in the court dared not treat him casually. Upon hearing this, Consort Bao immediately decided to go to Bai Xian's palace in person to explain the matter. After saying that, he remembered something else. Wasn't the concubine's tea party about to be held? What if I bowed down and asked them for help? Lin refused on the spot, saying that this would become a debt of gratitude that he would have to repay later. Moreover, those concubines probably wouldn't help a powerless and insignificant lowly warrior. Consort Bao didn't care about this. How could she know so easily? He was imprisoned and suffering every day while she was living a good life in Xunwu Palace. I would feel ashamed if I couldn't even handle this little bit of trouble. But what he didn't know was that the scene inside the cell was quite different. My stomach is so full. I never expected prison life to be so easy. At this moment, Zhang Lai suddenly spoke up. General Zhengxi will plead for you in court soon, but there's no such thing as a free lunch in this world. The only way to get married is for you to leave Baixian Palace and join Kai Palace, so what do you plan to do? Upon hearing this, I politely declined. The deputy general would actually say such insincere things for a mere third-rate warrior. However, please convey to Lord Zhang that I am doing well here. This left Zhang Lai utterly puzzled. Was there some greater advantage at play? My uncertain answer was that someone might offer to reduce my sentence. Zhang Lai wasn't surprised by this. After all, he had been rejected many times before. If he wants to join, he should join sooner rather than later. But don't forget, the council always welcomes you to change your mind. The next day, Sister Zulan appeared before me, weeping bitterly. Taping, what happened? Look how thin you've become. I was worried you weren't eating well, so I brought some fish and meat today. But what I'm curious about is, Sister Lan, how did you get into the Qigong prison? Zulan's pitiful response was, of course, kneeling on the ground and begging Lord Zhang Lai for help. Oh, and I also brought the salt from Tianlongzhai. Luckily, I got the head maid's permission. You can use it as you like, and I'll wash it clean and return it to them later. At this point, Zhang Lai pulled him up and led him outside. You've been talking for too long. Let's talk about this another time. As evening fell, Lord Baixian surprisingly arrived at the cell, but he immediately launched into a tirade. You troublesome jerk, have you achieved your goal? Have you upheld your beliefs? All that effort I put in was for nothing. Did you uphold your beliefs? I spent so much time carefully selecting people. Why are all the people from Baixian Palace so loud and boisterous? But fortunately, I also learned something from this experience. When you return to Baixian Palace, cook for me. It seems like it's been a long time since I've had your cooking. The scene shifts to a meeting in the hall. The minister in charge of this matter looks astonished. It's not a big deal, so why are there so many documents from the Crown Princess and Yao Chen? So he immediately found Deputy General Zheng Zidai and stated his purpose directly. Today, there's a case involving a martial artist from Baixian Palace at the court meeting. My daughter often sparred with him, but she said that martial artist is in prison and no one practices swordsmanship with him anymore. I heard the Deputy General also requested leniency. Zheng Zidai smiled and affirmed, Consort Ren's judgment is truly insightful. That fellow's swordsmanship is indeed remarkable. Last time, during the commotion at Beishi Mountain, it was he who saved the minister's daughter. Ren Shanlu sighed deeply. Originally, the case in court should be handled objectively, but I am also a father, so I can only be lenient. But there is one thing that I still can't understand. In order to defend a third-rate samurai, the virtuous palace maid Jin personally wrote a letter. Zheng Zidai was also puzzled by this, and then he brought up the matter of the demotion of the virtuous palace maid. Ren Shanlu replied that he had not yet received any news. Vice General, you have always been loyal to the palace maids of Tianlong Village, and I understand your feelings very well. However, it is an undeniable fact that the heavenly dragon Qi protecting the capital has recently weakened. Now, demons and monsters are running rampant in the outskirts of the capital, and even high-level monsters have appeared near the border. Zheng Zidai countered, Is that why the warriors of Baixian Palace receive so much attention? Ren Shanlu nodded. I heard that he comes from the Huolong bloodline family. The high-ranking officials of this palace have all been quite troubled by this. The palace maids of Tiandu not only allowed such people to enter the palace, but even allowed Xinbian Huo to do so. However, there was no connection between the two, which made me suspect that the palace maids of Tiandu might be plotting something. Upon hearing this, Zheng Zidai's expression became complicated, and his aura turned murky, largely due to the palace maids. What would happen if new maids replaced the current ones? At the same time, after leaving the cell, I immediately promised that I would remember this pain and would never be unfaithful again. Having said that, I hummed a little tune and walked towards the White Fairy Palace. Everyone is so worried about themselves, so I'll prepare a big meal for everyone this time, especially for Yan Li. He always cries and says he doesn't want to eat soup and rice, but I've always ignored him. I also often argue with him. Thinking about it carefully, I really feel a bit sorry for him. I'll prepare something delicious for him today and apologize. Just then, Yan Li suddenly spotted me, and he approached me with a troubled expression. Taping, Consort Bao is waiting for you. Upon meeting Consort Bao, he immediately stated his purpose. I've only come to see you, which makes me feel quite ashamed. Consort Bao, it seems you are not yet familiar with the rules of the inner palace. Before she could finish speaking, Consort Bao interrupted. You can't just run around openly, right? I was just a little worried about you, so I came to check on you. But judging from your condition, you don't seem to have any major problems. Of course, you don't need to worry about that. After all, I'm a master at sneaking out. Just then, a man ran over excitedly. Taping, I heard you're back, so I specially brought a bottle of good wine. Tell me about you and the other team. Upon seeing the situation, he immediately knelt down. Why has Consort Bao come to buy Xi'an Palace? If you had notified me beforehand, I could have made some preparations. Seeing this, I hurriedly introduced him to Consort Bao as Wang Han, the scribe of Bai Xi'an Palace and my best old friend. After hearing this, Consort Bao seemed thoughtful. Then, Princess Taping, why don't you become my friend too? This greatly surprised me. I'd never seen a third-rate warrior become friends with the crown princess before. You want to respond to my fear? How can a third-rate warrior become friends with the crown princess? Consort Bao sighed. After entering Tiandu Palace, you actually started talking to me about rules. I even had to bow my head and plead for you at the tea party. However, to be fair, Consort Ren and Consort Chen are truly kind and understanding. After hearing my request, they both rolled up their sleeves, wanting to help me. Hearing this, I was quite surprised. You mean you're asking other concubines in other palaces for help? Consort Bao was eager for affirmation. She had heard that the concubines did not get along well, but she did not expect them to help her so readily. Moreover, Consort Ren and Consort Chen had very high opinions of her. Hearing me suddenly interrupt, do you remember what I said before? Xiu, you absolutely cannot like me. Upon hearing this, Yan Li and Wang Han both turned to look at me with the same expression. I continued, explaining that it wasn't out of narcissism, but also because I had confirmed with the parties involved that Consort Ren and Consort Chen harbored feelings for me. Upon hearing this, the room fell silent. After a few seconds of stunned silence, Consort Bao stepped forward and touched my forehead. Have you seen a doctor? This is the first time in my life I've heard of being popular, but it's not easy for you to tell me not to like you. Should I call you straightforward or stupid? However, your sudden change in deference after entering the palace is rather unsettling. Since no one is seeing or hearing us now, why don't you call me Linghua now? Whence I refused on the spot. If someone heard, it would be a serious matter. But Consort Bao seemed unconcerned. So what? The White Fairy Palace is already sparsely populated, so please call me Linghua. Reluctantly, I closed my eyes and uttered her name. Whence Bao Xianfei blushed and turned her head away, saying, I didn't expect you to call me so romantically. After saying that, he left, embarrassed. Seeing this, I felt a chill run down my spine. I had simply called out his name, but it became an unforgettable image in Consort Bao's mind, and her face would even burn involuntarily whenever she thought of it. He couldn't help but sigh. In this matter, his excellent memory had become a poison. The memory had long been changed, but why did it still feel like it happened yesterday? Just then, Anling suddenly approached and said, Your Highness, Consort Xi'an, you seem quite troubled. Consort Xi'an, however, feigned indifference and said, Let's hurry to the tea party. Although she was used to pretending, she found the crown princesses very uncomfortable. Consort Ren appears magnanimous, but sometimes says things that make one feel anxious, while Consort Chen always stares at me with unfriendly eyes for some reason. Fortunately, Consort Zia keeps the atmosphere lively with a smile, but her thoughts are hard to fathom. Thinking of this, he sighed deeply again. Couldn't everyone just get along amicably? Meanwhile, Lord Bai Xi'an only assigned me one task, to start from the Azure Dragon Palace and check the formations of the 4 major palaces. He specifically instructed me to pay close attention to the Azure Dragon Palace, because he sensed that several of the talismans centered around it seemed to have lost their effectiveness. This puzzled me greatly. Why did Lord Bai Xi'an insist on sending me? I think it would be safer if you confirmed it yourself. Upon hearing this, Lord Bai Xi'an's expression immediately turned serious. The heavenly dragon's energy had recently weakened, which left me speechless. Recently, even in the capital city where the heavenly dragon Qi is strongest, monsters have begun to appear. However, this part belongs to the past in the novel, so I don't know exactly what happened. But the most important thing right now is to get to the 4 palaces. After hearing this, Wang Han immediately expressed his concern. If what you said before is true, then the 4 palaces are a place more terrifying than a battlefield for you. Even if confirming the formation doesn't require seeing anyone, it still makes me a little uneasy, doesn't it? What confuses me is that talismans with magical spells written on them shouldn't fall off easily. To destroy them, you would have to uproot the pillar with the talisman attached, or have a demon's yin energy destroy the spell on the talisman. If neither of those are the case, then some expert must have torn off the talisman. Wang Han immediately dismissed my idea. That was Bai Xian's talisman. To tear it off, one would need to be at least half as skilled as Bai Xian. But where in Tiandu Palace would one find such an expert? At this point, he suddenly changed the subject. But how could I ignore my old friend in trouble? Yan Li said that the crown princesses are not unreasonable people. If Consort Chen knew that her love for you would only cause harm and forced herself to suppress her feelings for you, things would become very complicated. Before they could finish speaking, a voice suddenly interrupted them. The newcomer was Yan Li. Wang Han rarely spoke like a human being. At this point, shock therapy was necessary. Since things had already turned out this way, they might as well take this opportunity during their trip to the four palaces to completely dissuade the crown princesses. Upon hearing this, I was startled. What terrible idea was he planning now? Wasn't my fourth aunt's husband enough last time? Yan Lij reassured me that I would go with him. Consider this visit to the four palaces as an exploration. Think about it carefully. The owners of each palace have different personalities and preferences. As long as you find out what kind of people the concubines in each palace dislike, then you can play the type they dislike. However, we absolutely cannot let the crown princesses discover our plan, otherwise all our efforts will be in vain. So, princess, please trust me, this will definitely be fine. Meanwhile, as the most important celebration of the year approached, the concubines at the tea party began discussing the story of the legend of the Condor heroes. Ren Yan spoke first, saying that she had heard Consort Chen's Taoist arts had greatly improved. Consort Bao echoed, Consort Chen's Taoist arts are truly astonishing. The palace officials praised her in unison. Upon hearing this, Consort Chen remained silent for a few seconds, then forced a smile, saying, "It's not that remarkable. I still need to continue refining my skills." Seeing this, Ren Yan immediately sensed something was amiss and decided to let it go. But why did Consort Chen admire Consort Bao so much? And moreover, why was a martial arts practitioner persuaded by Consort Bao? Why did Consort Bao keep protecting martial arts practitioners? With this question in mind, he asked directly, "Consort Bao, do you know any martial arts practitioners from Bai Xian Palace?" Consort Bao replied awkwardly, "It would be strange if I didn't. At the last tea party, I asked everyone to write the petition." Ren Yan also told him that he hadn't seen him in a long time and that he wanted to spar with him once he felt better. Upon hearing this, Consort Bao immediately remembered what I had said before. Consort Ren and Consort Chen both have a soft spot for me, but this is not good news for him. So he quickly replied that the martial arts student named Tae-pyung seems to be very busy and may not have time to spar with me. Seeing all this, Consort De was speechless. It seemed neither of you two considered the feelings of a third-rate samurai. Ren and Yan awkwardly explained that although he was a low-ranking samurai, he was still a staff member of the Heavenly Capital Palace. Consort Bao, however, felt as if she were walking on thin ice, her back pierced by thorns. The tea party should end quickly. Just then, a maidservant suddenly arrived to report that someone from the White Immortal Palace had come to visit, saying that the formations of the four palaces had malfunctioned, related to the invasion of the wise demon, and that it was a very important matter. Should they send him into the Azure Dragon Palace? Upon hearing this, the crown princesses all showed unusual expressions. "You mean you're from Bai Xian Palace?" Consort Chen immediately ordered someone to invite me in, and I got straight to the point, saying, "I'm very sorry to have disturbed your conversation. May I inquire about the well-being of those inside the tea party?" Consort Chen was quite surprised. She hadn't expected them to arrive so quickly. The efficiency of the White Immortal Palace was truly impressive. Upon hearing this, I immediately sensed something amiss. It seemed Consort Chen's Taoist arts had indeed affected Fuxing. Surely she hadn't intentionally disrupted the formation. At this moment, Consort Chen was heartbroken. Could she have another chance? Although she had accidentally encountered the formation, and she could foresee that she would meet martial arts practitioners, why did it have to be at this time? He clearly wanted to be alone with her. Although that's what he thought, he still helplessly expressed his welcome. During the confirmation process, Consort Zia suddenly spoke up, saying that since the two families were jointly hosting Tianlongjai this time, there were many shortcomings, so he asked everyone to forgive them. However, the other crown princesses didn't listen to what he was saying at all. Instead, their eyes followed my every move. With a question mark on her face, Consort De asked Ren Yan, "Is there something you're worried about?" After regaining her senses, Ren Yan hurriedly denied it. Then will Consort Ziada also showcase her talents in the Legend of the Condor Heroes? Consort Ziada shook her head. I will release a Kongaming lantern as a representative. Just then, Yan Li suddenly missed a step and cried out in surprise. Seeing this, I rushed forward and steadied him. However, this scene earned me the sharp looks of the crown princesses. Yan Li quickly distanced himself from me. Tae-pyung, for my sake, you'd better stay a little further away. After the inspection was completed, I immediately reported, Please rest assured, Your Highnesses, there's nothing seriously wrong here. Consort Zia expressed her gratitude verbally, but inwardly she was constantly wondering if this man was Seo Tae-pyung. The other crown princesses' attitudes toward this warrior were rather unusual. It would be difficult to pretend they didn't know. I remember they had the same expression when I begged for a reduced sentence last time. Although he was good-looking and seemed capable in combat, he was still just a vulgar, third-rate martial artist. It seems there are many unknowns here. However, the masters of the four great dukes would never help a third-rate samurai out of personal feelings. Their help must have been calculated in terms of their own gains and losses. Their concern for this man must have some political reason. That's my turn to speak, I said. Our mission is complete, so we'll take our leave now. Consort Chen quickly stopped me. There's something I find suspicious. After the investigation, could you come with me to check out the training grounds outside the Azure Dragon Palace? I often practice Taoist immortal arts there. Could you please check if my Taoist power will affect the formation? But before I could reply, Ren Heian preemptively refused his request. Our Vermilion Bird Palace's formation also has many problems. Problems with the formation directly affect safety, so we hope that the people from the White Immortal Palace will finish their inspection of the Vermilion Bird Palace as soon as possible. Will the Dao power affect the formation? Why don't the Taoist priests and Xuanwu people just ask Bai Xian after they return? Then I hope that Xuanwu people will go to Zhuge Palace after inspecting Qinglong Palace, and then take this opportunity to have a sparring match with me. Before I could respond, Consort Bao suddenly stepped forward. Our Xuanwu Palace's formation also has many problems. We've been waiting for Baixian Palace's help for days. As far as I know, Zhuge Palace's problems aren't too serious. Perhaps we should go check on Xuanwu Palace first. Seeing this, Ren Heian immediately confirmed her suspicions. It seemed that Consort Bao indeed had some doubts about the Xuanwu people. Consort Bao was also thinking that Consort Ren seemed unusual, but the two tacitly agreed that their goal was to protect Seo Tae-pyung. Seeing the scene of the group arguing endlessly, Consort Zia suddenly interrupted. Actually, it would be more appropriate to ask the people from Baixian Palace to make a judgment on the issue of the formation. Upon hearing this, everyone immediately agreed to his suggestion. Consort Chen then asked directly, Then please answer, Xuanwu people, which place is the most efficient to visit after the investigation? The concubines were all filled with anticipation. Surely he would choose me as his friend. Of course he would choose me as his helper. Would he go somewhere else? After a moment's thought, I cautiously spoke. Since we're going to inspect everything, let's start with the White Tiger Palace, which doesn't have any major problems. The remaining palaces need to be inspected carefully. Upon hearing this, the crown princesses immediately focused their attention on Consort Zia, who was also surprised by the answer, but ultimately agreed with my assessment. Although I didn't know if he had any political value, he seemed to have some inexplicable goodwill towards me. Then let's take advantage of this opportunity. Who knows, it might even help me enhance my authority within the four palaces. Thinking this, he continued, With such a reliable martial artist as you inspecting the formation, I feel truly at ease. After the Taoist priest arrives at the White Tiger Palace, let's go to the tea room for a cup of tea first. Hearing this, cold sweat involuntarily broke out on my forehead. I was truly speechless. This remark was unintentionally provoking the other crown princesses. Consort Zia seemed to have noticed something as well. Why did she feel a chill down her spine since earlier? Just after Yan Li and I arrived at the White Tiger Palace, the plot of the novel came to mind. If I had to choose the most popular character in the novel, it would be really difficult. But if I had to pick the most greedy one, I would choose Consort de Zia Yu without hesitation, because he was a vulgar person who would stop at nothing to gain power. He was responsible for most of the incidents that occurred in the four palaces, and for a long time he was at odds with the female lead. His most audacious decision was to poison the most powerful person, the imperial concubine. Although he didn't see the ending, his fate was sure to be the most tragic. He was the character who most deserved to get what he deserved, a fate that would satisfy the readers. Just then, a maid from the White Tiger Palace suddenly asked, What if there's a problem with the formation? Should we wait for Lord White Immortal to come in person? I immediately confirmed it, but based on our initial examination, there were no major problems with the White Tiger Palace. To avoid making consort Zia uncomfortable, we will proceed immediately after the examination. To avoid making Zia Defei uncomfortable, we will leave immediately after the inspection. Soon, after a careful examination, we have basically reached a conclusion. The White Tiger Palace's formation is fine. Only the Azure Dragon Palace's formation is affected because Consort Chen's Dao power has been compromised. It seems the other palaces are mostly unaffected. Just then, Yan Li suddenly noticed the maids cleaning and whispered a request to me. Let's keep some distance in the 4 palaces. I don't know if you noticed, but I felt a sense of danger during the tea party earlier, so you should be mindful of that. You've become a plague, capable of killing every woman around you just by standing there. Although I've considered abandoning you, you are, after all, a member of the White Fairy Palace. Just as he was about to outline his action plan for visiting the other palaces, a voice suddenly interrupted him. Zia Defei said he would like to invite the 2 of us for tea. Upon meeting Zia Defei, he immediately expressed his gratitude to us. You 2 have worked hard. Although Lord Bai Xian was unable to come in person this time, the etiquette of hospitality will remain unchanged. Therefore, this Taoist priest hopes that you 2 will put in a good word for him with Lord Bai Xian. Before we could respond, he suddenly changed the subject. But then again, at the last tea party, Consort Bao went to great lengths to lessen your punishment, and it seems the other concubines in the palace also owe you favors. Can you tell me what help you provided? I answered truthfully. I helped treat Consort Chen when she was sick, I protected Consort Ren from a demon when she was in trouble, and I helped Consort Bao find someone she was looking for. Zia Defei immediately praised them, saying that martial arts practitioners are indeed very capable. But even so, it's a bit suspicious that they would be willing to help you in the hall just to repay a favor. Upon hearing this, I hastily made an excuse, saying it was probably because the crown princesses were all kind-hearted, and I would never forget their kindness until I died. Zia Defei was silent for a moment, then revealed his suspicions. Martial arts scholar, you are truly reliable yet foolish. Have you ever been bothered by a woman like this before? Upon hearing this, I quickly denied it, saying that Consort De was not what I thought. However, Zia Defei ended the conversation by saying, I can't keep you here any longer. I just wanted to invite you for a cup of tea. Thank you for keeping me company for so long. As I left, my gaze fell on Zia Defei again. It seemed he knew everything. Back at the White Immortal Palace, Yan Li was in a terrible predicament. If Zia Defei started gathering evidence, something serious was bound to happen. I agree with Yan Li's opinion. Next month, Consort De will do anything to gain power. If she knew the crown princesses harbored feelings for a third-rate warrior, deposing one of them wouldn't be difficult for her. Just then, Yan Li suddenly spoke, interrupting my thoughts. Tae-pyung, we can't just sit here and wait to die. But thinking about it carefully, it seems there's nothing we can do. Hearing this, I felt completely uneasy. Was my life really over? The great man Seo Tae-pyung met a tragic end. Suddenly, Yan Li had an idea. Tae-pyung, I have a good idea. We'll think about the rest later. The most important thing right now is to protect our lives. We must survive, even if there's only a sliver of hope. Humans exist to live, and to live longer, we must find a way to survive. That's life, so from now on, you need to listen carefully to what I'm saying. By this point, whether it's 3 or 4, it's about the same. Upon hearing this, I was instantly petrified. Yan Li, what exactly do you mean? He then called Zhu Lan and Wang Han over. We're gathered here today for the sake of peace, and my plan is to conquer the White Tiger Palace. As evening fell, Zia Defei asked if he had contacted the head maid of the Renfeng household, and she confirmed that the heavenly dragon priest would arrive on time. However, the items you requested are not yet ready, as bringing poison into the palace is a capital offense, so we haven't found anyone willing to take the risk. But we can disguise the medicinal herbs in the yam-scented sachet and bring it into the palace. Upon hearing this, Zia Defei revealed a meaningful smile. Humans are truly unpredictable creatures, living more luxurious lives than anyone else, while the new master is merely a low-ranking samurai. He must seize this opportunity to deal with that fire fox. Before that, let that White Fairy Palace warrior fall at her feet. The next day, Wang Han speculated that if Consort Zia had already found the artifacts, there was a high probability that she would actively approach Princess Tae-pyung. But knowing that the concubines liked Princess Tae-pyung, there was nothing he could do. To use this as a political weapon, evidence is needed. So soon, Consort Zia will definitely find a reason to summon you to Baxian Palace, and then personally fabricate evidence. At this point, he patted my shoulder earnestly. Taping, just do as Yan Li plans. Use your gorgeous appearance and silver tongue to unleash your bewitching charm as if you were possessed by a ghost. As long as you can successfully win over Consort Zia's heart, your life will be saved. Hearing this, I was speechless. Was it really okay to base my judgment on such a vague guess? Yan Li retorted, "Isn't your life in danger right now?" Sister Zhu Lan also stepped forward to comfort me. Taping, don't worry. If this trick doesn't work, we can just run away like we did when we were kids and wander the world. What's wrong with that? This moved me deeply. My sister, who would become a palace maid in the capital, was willing to wander the world for her brother. Thinking of this, I immediately agreed to their plan, since there was no loss even if it failed. After hearing my straightforward idea, Yan Li looked astonished. This was too crazy. A few days later, as expected, I was summoned by Consort Zia. You were busy repairing the palace's array, and I was really embarrassed to have to call you several times. I hurriedly replied, "How can the crown princess of a nation apologize to a mere warrior?" Princess Zia immediately retorted, "It is precisely because of warriors like you that we are able to live a peaceful life, so of course we should thank you." After some pleasantries, Consort Zia finally revealed the purpose of the summons. Actually, it is our Renfeng family that is hosting this Heavenly Dragon Festival. Before the Phoenix Lantern ceremony, I would like to set up a stage to enhance the atmosphere. During the last birthday celebration, your martial arts duel with Consort Ren left a deep impression. Such an outstanding sword dance was only appreciated by high-ranking officials in the palace. Don't you think it's a pity? Therefore, on a grand stage like the Heavenly Dragon Festival, I want all the people of the capital to see Consort Ren's graceful and heroic swordsmanship. Would you be willing to engage in a sword duel with Consort Ren? I was utterly puzzled. You should ask Consort Ren's opinion first, Consort Zia said meaningfully. I think persuading you first is the right approach. Of course, I will also consult Consort Ren's opinion, but I'd rather hear yours. Hearing my unwavering refusal surprised Consort Zia. I thought you were a seasoned and experienced person. I never expected such rudeness. You should know the rules of Tiandu Palace, right? Left with no other choice, I feigned fear and confessed everything. I, this humble servant, have committed a capital offense. As I said before, I am a martial artist of Tiandu Palace and have always been loyal to the utmost. However, after seeing Consort Zia's Heavenly Dragon dance at the last birthday celebration, your ethereal beauty, like a fairy descending to earth, has been deeply etched into my heart. How could I, a mere third-rate samurai, possibly harbor maternal feelings for someone as high and mighty as you? Therefore, I have committed a capital offense. Even more so, I fear that seeing you frequently in preparation for the Heavenly Dragon Festival will cause that disloyal thought in my heart to snowball, growing stronger like a mere speck. This is why I cannot obey your Majesty's command. After saying this, I felt a surge of secret joy. Excellent, my momentum was impressive just now. However, Consort Zia seemed utterly disgusted. How dare a mere third-rate warrior speak to the crown princess? He suddenly stopped while I wore an expression that said, "I knew it all along." It turns out that Wang Han had foreseen all of this long ago. Even if Consort Zia was angry, he would never refuse Princess Tae-pyung. From Consort Zia's perspective, Princess Tae-pyung was a sword that could cut down the crown princess, so Princess Tae-pyung was the real impostor. Thinking that I should speak frankly, I thought, "Your Highness, Consort Qin, punish my infidelity and sentence me to death." Consort Zia looked surprised. "I know you should be severely punished for your infidelity, but sometimes people's hearts are beyond their control." I feigned surprise and said, You're willing to forgive me. You're so magnanimous. Even if I'm tied to the rack and struggling in pain, I will never forget your compassion, Consort Zia." Consort Zia, unable to bear it any longer, snapped, "Can you stop causing trouble? If you really want a beating, then accept my personal punishment. That means you'll have to work even harder to prepare for me. That means you'll work even harder to prepare the legend of the Condor heroes for me. Is it all right to try to create a good atmosphere for the fight between the Taoist priest and Consort Ren?" I agreed to his conditions without hesitation, but aren't you worried that something might happen if I stay by your side? Zia Defei shook her head. "Whatever your intentions towards me, it doesn't affect me much. As long as I stay clear-headed, nothing strange will happen. So, Taoist priest, see you again in the legend of the Heavenly Dragon." Soon after returning to the White Immortal Palace, Wang Han immediately inquired about my safety. I reassured him that he needn't worry. Just as you said, Consort Zia would never distance herself from me. But what Yan Li couldn't understand was why Consort Zia insisted on having Consort Taping and Consort Ren compete in The Legend of the Condor Heroes. Zulan and Wang Han couldn't figure out the reason either, while I fell into deep thought. This is the past part of the novel, so I can't yet see through Zia Defei's scheme. However, during the reading of The Legend of the Condor Heroes, I seem to recall the novel's female protagonist, Zulan, meeting in Chuan. Many male characters were attracted to Zulan, but 3 stood out as the most. Crown Prince Xuan Yuan, martial arts master Zhang Lai, and the Taoist priest in Chuan. Zulan encountered Prince Xuan Yuan during the birthday festival, met Zhang Lai in a small alley of the White Immortal Palace, and met the later protagonist, and Chuan during the Heavenly Dragon Festival. Only then does the novel's plot officially begin. Zulan helped Anchuan during the Heavenly Dragon Festival, and Anchuan, who was proficient in Taoist magic, gave Zulan a treasure. This treasure could not only resist most charm spells, but also became an important item for Zulan to secure her future and be crowned as a palace maid in the heavenly capital. Thinking of this, I immediately asked Sister Lan, "Will you go to Lingyuan during the Tianlong Chronicles?" Zulan confirmed. "The Taoist priests and celestial maidens will also appear, so all the maids from Tianlong village will have to go and serve them." Hearing me continue, she said, "Sister, instead of worrying about me, you should focus on your work." Seeing Zulan's worried expression, I reassured her that she didn't need to worry about Zia Defei's matter. We would definitely resolve it smoothly. After all, you are a maid of Tianlong village, and sneaking out is a serious crime, so you should just focus on your work. Speaking of which, I secretly vowed that this Tianlong Chronicles is very important to my Zhu siblings, and I must not ruin the bond between my sister and Enchuan. Sister, you must get that string of black pearls, and I will definitely make Consort Zia fall in love with me. At the same time, Zhu Gongren and Yan were reading the letter sent by Consort Zia. Although they should have refused the challenge to duel with Zhu Yuren, they were people who could distinguish right from wrong, and this was also an excellent opportunity to hone their swordsmanship. Just then the head maid suddenly spoke, interrupting his thoughts. "The White Tiger Palace has also sent you a sachet, which I heard was personally embroidered by Consort Zia." Looking at the exquisite sachet in the wooden box, Ren and Yan couldn't help but exclaim, "How beautiful!" Zia Defei's craftsmanship is indeed excellent. Since he made the gift himself, I have no reason to refuse. With that, a happy smile spread across his lips. However, the head maid had a nagging feeling that things weren't so simple. As night fell, I gazed at the moonlight, lost in thought. Was it true, as Yan Li had said, that only by winning over Consort Zia's heart and subjecting her to the same fate as the other crown princesses could we eliminate any future trouble? However, there were other ways to do this, because I didn't want Wang Han and Yan Li to get involved, so I didn't tell them. My secret method was to find evidence that Consort Zia had framed Consort Ren. To threaten the crown princess, who holds a high position, one must be prepared to kill her with a single blow at any time. Once the opportunity arises to inform Consort Ren of this situation, I believe she will cooperate. To be honest, this method is more realistic than seducing Consort Zia. Just then, a voice suddenly startled me. Looking closer, I saw it was Lord Bai Xian and immediately asked, "Why are you only returning so late?" "Master Bai Xian, I explained that I went to White Stone Mountain to resolve some trouble and now I'm starving. Please make me a bowl of soup and rice." Hearing this, I hurriedly prepared to set off. But the next second, I witnessed a shocking scene. "Lord Bai Xian, please wait a moment. I'll go and fetch Yan Li right away and have him prepare a new Taoist robe for you." Lord Bai Xian patted his sleeves, and the aura of the Heavenly Dragon became very turbid. "Peace! The Heavenly Dragon Festival is coming soon, Taoist. Taping the Tianlong Chronicle is about to begin. Taoist, remember to bring the cold iron heavy sword." Upon hearing this, I immediately had a bad feeling. According to the novel's plot, monsters shouldn't appear in the inner heavens of the Tianlong Chronicle. So why does Master Bai Xian want me to bring the cold iron heavy sword? This Heavenly Dragon Chronicle within the White Tiger Palace is a golden opportunity to enhance the authority of our Renfeng family. I never had such an opportunity when I was a virtuous concubine in the harem. So Yue, you absolutely cannot relax, understand. The speaker was Zia Defei's elder sister, Zhang Fei Zia Kaling. Zia Defei nodded slightly. "Don't worry, sister, I've arranged everything." The scene shifted, and the highly anticipated Tianlong Chronicles finally began. Yan Li, standing atop the city wall, was also drawn to the lively scene. "Taping, let's go shopping before sunset." Seeing my puzzled look, he seemed to have guessed something. Don't worry, I've finished all the urgent matters at Baxian Palace beforehand. This is an annual celebration, I can't miss this festivities. While Qi Xiang told Yu Yanli to relax, I felt uneasy. Nothing particularly unusual had happened so far, but because Zia Defei was involved, I had to stay alert. As evening approached, Lord Zhang Lai suddenly came looking for me, saying that the imperial concubine Ren requested my presence. He then handed me a wooden plaque, explaining that seeing this would allow the sentries to enter quickly. I then went to the tent where imperial concubine Ren was located. I am Seo Tae-pyung from Baxian Palace. It is an immense honor to stand on the dueling platform and spar with the imperial concubine today. Upon seeing this, Ren and Yan were overjoyed, but realizing the situation, he immediately calmed down. You really haven't changed at all. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead at that thought. He seemed to be deliberately keeping his distance from me, as if afraid I'd misunderstand, constantly watching my expression. Why was that? At this moment, Ren and Yan continued, Taoist, take your real sword and go to the dueling platform. Seeing my hesitant look, Ren and Yan's tone became more angry. Are you going to disobey the crown princess's orders? Or is there another reason why you're not drawing your real sword? After hesitating for a moment, I finally confessed that I had hurt someone when I was a child, which left me with a lot of trauma. Upon hearing this, both he and Yan fell silent. Since that's the case, it's fine if you don't use it, but this time I'll definitely teach you a lesson, you arrogant fellow. This made me shed a tear. I was so touched, Consort Ren was actually thinking of me. Even after leaving the tent, I couldn't forget what I had just witnessed. She truly is Consort Ren, the Consort Ren I've always trusted. A moment later, Ren and Yan finally appeared on the dueling platform. As expected of the masters of the Vermilion Bird Palace, they were truly beautiful. At that moment, Ren and Yan suddenly spoke. Today is a joyous day. I pray that the might of the heavenly capital palace, protected by the heavenly dragon, will last for 10,000 years. Having said that, he drew his sword directly. To show respect, I finally drew my real sword as well. Seo Tae-pyung, a martial arts master from Baxian Palace, came to offer his guidance. I launched the first attack, and in the midst of the exchange of blows, the sachet tied to the hilt of Ren and Yan's sword suddenly fell apart. He choked on the unexpected turn of events, then immediately threw away his sword. She knelt on the ground, breathing heavily and her face flushed. Noticing her distress, I rushed forward to help her up. Consort Ren, are you all right? Let me help you down from the arena. As I spoke, I suddenly caught a whiff of a strange fragrance, but I had no time to think about it then. Consort Ren, can you hear me? Do you know who I am? Ren and Yan replied in a low voice, You are Seo Tae-pyung from Baxian Palace. How could I forget you? As he said this, he suddenly grabbed my collar and said, I have never forgotten you. Can you hug me just once? Upon hearing this, my face turned ashen. How could there suddenly be a life-threatening crisis? Princess Zhu, please speak softly, or someone could die. So I hurriedly announced to everyone that Consort Ren seemed to have suffered from heat stroke, and I would take her to the tent first. The head maid immediately understood what was happening and readily asked everyone to make way. Seeing the crisis averted, I breathed a long sigh of relief. Head maid, could you tell what happened to Consort Ren? The head maid speculated that Consort Ren might have been poisoned, possibly with a fever-inducing poison, a psychotropic poison that could cause confusion, or a mind-altering drug like the one used to deliver fragrance to Yuexiang. Just then Ren Yan suddenly called my name softly. Tae-pyung, your name sounds so natural. When Consort Bao was checking if I would call your name, I wanted to call your name too. Seeing that Consort Ren was about to speak, the head maid quickly covered her mouth, and so we finally escorted Consort Ren to the tent. Before the tent was closed, the head maid publicly gave orders. Consort Ren's condition was very serious. She seemed to have been poisoned by incense, and no one was allowed to enter the tent without permission. After everything was arranged, the head maid continued, Consort Ren's condition is strange. It doesn't seem like poisoning, it's more like she drank some poisoned wine. Even if it were alcohol, Consort Ren wouldn't be so composed. Just then Ren Yan called my name again and again. While tidying the bed, I responded, Your condition is not good, Consort Ren. Please rest in bed. Just as I turned around to check the situation, he suddenly pounced on me and pushed me down onto the bed. Before I could react, he kissed me. Seeing this, the head maid was thunderstruck. Ren and Yan, who had just released her, were blushing. They were indeed completely different from the beastly look in their eyes when they were wielding swords. That's the kind of look you should have at this age. With that, she pouted and tried to kiss me again. Luckily, I was prepared this time, and I dodged it with a quick somersault. Seeing this, Ren Yan immediately revealed a mischievous grin. Want to grab my shoulders and pull me into your arms? Your chest looks very reliable. I hurriedly advised him to calm down and not lose his temper. However, Ren and Yan didn't care at all. So what if they lost their minds? I was just asking for your opinion, or do you hate me? I just wanted to talk to you about life. Since that's the case, I, as the master of the Vermilion Bird Palace, now give you this order. If you dare disobey me, you will be punished. Even if it means poisoning me and invoking the name of the family's young lady, you will still be punished. No matter what I ask you to do, you cannot disobey me. Seeing the situation spiraling out of control, the head maid suddenly poured a bucket of cold water on him. Even after escaping the crisis again, I was still shaken. It had truly been too dangerous. Fortunately, Consort Ren is now unconscious in bed. Head maid, I owe you a life. The head maid shook her head. Consort Ren and I both owed you a life before. Consider this repayment. In addition, I will take the matter of the tent to my grave. But I need to be more careful in the future. There must be something wrong with the sachet that Consort Ren was wearing on the martial arts stage. That sachet was a gift from Consort Zia of the White Tiger Palace, which makes me think deeply. The head maid was right. This was indeed the weakness I had found in Consort De. But why do I still feel a sense of unease? Was she blinded by power, committing heinous and immoral acts? This is the Consort De's imprisonment, as I saw it in the novel. Considering her role in the story, she doesn't completely disappear after the ending. She's a character who provides readers with emotional catharsis. His fate was certainly more tragic than others, but thinking about it carefully, it's quite strange. He was the master of the White Tiger Palace, and he wielded great power in the Heavenly Capital Palace. How could Zhu Lan, who hadn't yet become a palace maid, possibly have convicted him? How exactly was he convicted? Just as I realized there was something fishy about the poisoning of Consort Ren, I immediately returned to my tent. This greatly angered Ren Yan upon her awakening. "You're too cruel. Couldn't you give me a little time to process my thoughts?" I reluctantly expressed my apologies because there was something I needed to confirm. Ren and Yan understood what I meant and didn't pursue the matter further. Please forget what I saw and how I lost my composure in front of you before. However, all of this must be because of what's inside the sachet, and I didn't rush to refute that. I had a long talk with the maid, and although we don't know what kind of herbs they are, someone must have tampered with them. Strangely, although I knew the sachet was a gift from Consort Zia, based on my understanding of him, he was quite cunning in this regard. This crude technique didn't seem to be his doing. Ren Yan also confirmed my statement. He didn't seem like the kind of person who would do something so harmful that he himself would end up as a deposed concubine. Hearing this, the head maid suddenly remembered what had happened. The sachet was given to me by a maid dressed as a maid from the White Tiger Palace, so it was possible that someone wanted to frame Consort Zia. Ren and Yan echoed each other, but there are many contradictions here. It seems we need to send someone to investigate who's behind this. But then again, this is truly a huge problem for Zhuwu. As he spoke, his face flushed red again. I ask you to pretend this never happened. The person involved's will is most important. I lost my composure because of the influence of the other herbs and, of course, what I just said. You don't need to take it too seriously. These words plunged the scene into awkward silence once more, leaving Ren and Yan at a loss for what to do. Just answer me already. Do you want me to die of shame? Before I could even speak, his expression suddenly changed. Yes, why dwell on the past? The most important thing now is to find the murderer who sent the sachet. Just then, a maidservant came to report from outside the tent that the palace warriors had found a sachet on the dueling platform. The vice-general said that once you are fully recovered, he would like to discuss the sachet with you. After the maidservants withdrew, Ren and Yan turned their gaze to me. A little investigation would reveal that this matter was related to Defei. He then handed me a wooden token, the Vermilion Bird token, a pass for freely entering and leaving the inner palace. Take this to the White Tiger Palace. If I'm not mistaken, something must have happened to Zia Defei. I shouldn't have entrusted this to a martial artist from the White Immortal Palace. But you're the only one I trust right now, so would you be willing to act as my eyes and ears for the time being? At the same time, a voice suddenly came from behind Wang Han of Baixian Palace. After seeing who it was, he asked in confusion, "Lord Baixian, why are you out here?" Lord Baixian can also see the lanterns flying and the fireworks from here. I'm waiting for that moment. As he said this, the wind suddenly shifted. Had that kid Tae-pyung gotten himself into some dangerous situation again? However, Wang Han remained calm and composed. Although many major events have occurred, I'm confident that Tae-pyung will survive this time. This isn't just speculation, It's like a gamble. To make big money, you have to go all in. There will always be a point where a winner must be decided. If you keep hesitating, you'll eventually be eaten away and left penniless. So I think the Game of Thrones is actually very similar to gambling. Even in Go or chess, you can't possibly get all the pieces on the board. Sometimes you have to reuse pieces you were planning to discard. At this moment, what was Xia Defei of Beihu Palace thinking about with a heavy heart? It turned out that the huge bets that Ren Feng's retainers had promised him had not been delivered to him, as if someone had stolen them from him. Just as he sensed something was wrong, the head maid suddenly rushed over. "Your Highness, Zhang Yifei has come to the White Tiger Palace, and he's brought some martial artists whose identities are unknown." Defei thought of his father's favorite saying, "Take a step back for now." This was a way of expressing a sacrifice. He first heard this phrase when he was 6 years old, when his father promised his uncle that it was only a temporary retreat and that he would definitely return to the palace when the opportunity arose. But after his uncle resigned and returned to his hometown, he never came back. There was also the matter of a retainer being falsely accused and imprisoned, who never received news of his father's rescue until the day of his execution. This was how it was to survive in Ren Feng's household. Even if he was seen being robbed, even if he had to crawl on the ground, he had to cling to life. For him, this was what it meant to be alive. A moment later, Defei's eyes filled with wariness as he saw Zhang Yifei and his group. Not a palace guard, and with his face veiled in black, could he be the commander of the royal guard. At this moment, Zhang Yifei directly expressed the purpose of his visit. Because of the incident where Consort Ren fainted at the martial arts arena, the palace guards found a sachet containing poisonous herbs at the scene. It was said that it was a gift from the White Tiger Palace. As a member of Ren Feng's family, he could not sit idly by, so he rushed to the White Tiger Palace. Defei asked tentatively, "What if I said I've never given away sachets?" This answer clearly surprised Zhang Yifei, who would then continue to investigate whether what he said was true. Consort Wen immediately ordered her maids to go back. Watching the maids walk away, Consort Wen continued, "I knew it would be my turn someday. I thought that as long as I could become the crown princess, I could live a little longer. Now it seems that the demon moon incense has not worked. That martial artist named Seo Tae-pyung has quite a knack for improvisation." Consort Zhang smiled sinisterly. "So, you're admitting your crimes? But don't worry, we're both daughters of the Ren Feng family. I'll definitely plead for you before the emperor." Upon hearing this, Consort smiled with relief. What was bound to happen would happen. "Consort Zhangyi, wasn't this all you're doing? Have you forgotten how I helped you adapt to life in the palace?" As he spoke, he couldn't help but feel sorry for Consort Zhang. If he had obtained the demon moon fragrance, wouldn't he have ended up doing the same thing? But Seo Tae-pyung, that man, might have already seen through some things back then. His observation skills were truly outstanding. But it's pointless to talk about this now. If the emperor knew about this, he would surely sentence me to death, and Consort Zhang's offer to plead for me is utter nonsense. As soon as she thought of it, a ball of fire suddenly appeared in her palm. The next second, she threw it at the fireworks and firecrackers to be used during the celebration. With a loud bang, the scene immediately descended into chaos. Consort Zhang finally understood why Consort Du had used the Taoist magic to take advantage of the chaos and escape using the fire. Indeed, this was Consort Du's plan. She was convinced that she could escape successfully because no one knew the internal structure of the White Tiger Palace better than her. As long as she continued forward and opened the kitchen window, she could easily reach the backyard. After escaping the capital, he could sell his jewelry and survive for a few more months. Having successfully reached the backyard as planned, he finally breathed a long sigh of relief. This level of escape speed was already quite fast. It was truly a stroke of luck. But just as he was feeling relieved, the appearance of a man plunged him into despair. Was fate finally going to abandon me, sending a grim reaper to kill me? Just when he thought it was all over, I slowly extended my hand to him. "Consort Xia, let's escape the palace together." He asked me in shock why I was there. I explained that it was all thanks to Consort Ren for giving me the vermilion bird token. Once we left the palace, there were plenty of places to hide, and if all else failed, we could hide in Bakesin Palace. This puzzled Consort Du greatly. "Why did you help me? You must have discovered what I was trying to do, right?" I naturally understood that he was referring to the sachet. "If it really was made by you, then there are too many flaws in this matter. The Consort Xia I know is a meticulous person who leaves no room for error. In the novel, Consort Xia's fate next month is tragic, but I haven't seen the reason for her tragic end. But how could the master of the White Tiger Palace fall so easily? Thinking of this, I directly voiced my suspicion. Have you been drawn into the power struggle between the phoenix and the human phoenix? Seeing the slightly surprised look on Consort De's face, I immediately confirmed my thoughts. Then I brought her some good news. Consort Ren, who had almost fallen victim to the trap, also realized that this matter was not so simple. She was currently discussing with General Fu that if you could escape and save your life, the situation might improve later. However, Consort De's face was very solemn. Consort Zhangyi, Xia Kaling, had already sent military men to arrest me. Before things get complicated, it would be better to bring me before the emperor and then pin all the blame on me. Consort Zhang, Xia Kaling, is the fourth consort of the current emperor and the woman with the highest status besides the head of the Renfeng family. So even if people feel that all of this is strange, they can't say anything without evidence. Since the sachet was indeed sent from the White Tiger Palace, as long as Consort Zhang holds on to this point, Consort Xia will have no hope of turning the tables. Clearly, Consort Xia has also realized this, which is why she uttered those self-deprecating words. So I immediately pressed him, "Did you really do those things?" After receiving Xia Defei's denial, I comforted her. "Isn't that the point? You've always been someone who lives according to your faith." The words had barely left her lips when the exhausted consort suddenly collapsed to the ground. Seeing this, I quickly offered to carry her and continue our escape, but her eyes were filled with despair. "I truly envy you leaving so quickly," I said, "but telling Consort Ren that it was me who did it, and that Consort Zhangyi must have had a backup plan, will bring you and Consort Ren no benefit whatsoever." My eyes were filled with despair. "I truly envy you. You should leave quickly and tell Consort Ren that it was me who did it. Zhang Yifei must have had a backup plan. Helping me would be of no benefit to you or Consort Ren, especially since I've already become a pawn of my family. It all feels ironic to me. Zhang Yifei's actions actually harmed the rights of Renfeng's family. The master of Beihu Palace became a deposed concubine because of her bad deeds. Even the powerful Renfeng family would be affected, but he only thought about consolidating his own position. What puzzled me was why Xia Defei said he envied me. Xia Defei explained, "Because you are strong, you can uphold your beliefs in the face of any difficulty. But there are always more weak people than strong people in this world. The weak have no choice but to use any means to survive, turning a blind eye to injustice and occasionally doing things against their conscience through despicable means. So I envy you. Since you can't shake off those ghostly hands, you might as well stay here." Hearing this, I interrupted him directly. "Xia Defei, don't rush to give up. I've already thought of a way." At the same time, the Ghost Hand Clan chief brought Zhang Yifei a message. They had found Xia Defei in the middle gate of the backyard. He hesitated, then added, "But there are 5 strange people guarding the middle gate, so we lost Xia Defei again. This is the only solution I can think of. Buy time and let Xia Defei escape first."